Really?
Which turned out not necessarily be true.
Oh.
Tell all the kids to get off the internet.
Yo, Ashley chewed me out.
Why? What happened?
For coming here yesterday.
Why?
Because she doesn't want the kids to leave the house.
Leave what house? Oh, because she's worried about coronavirus?
Yeah. So,
Oh, he's grabbing me.
I asked her, like an hour ago.
Hey, pass my Middle America computer.
And she's like, yeah, that's fine.
Computers?
So weird. Jamie, pass my thing down there.
That's so fat.
Laptop?
Yeah.
Where?
It should be right there, my Middle America one.
But if you don't like the prices, you can complain to the manager, and they will literally look into it and change it. I've seen it happen a bunch of times.
Yeah, that's not what I'm worried about. Visibility, public.
Hey, you guys, who wanted the noodles?
Is that it right there?
Who had asked for those? Johan and Zoe.
Papa.
Audio. What about now? You guys hear audio now? Trump, Big Nose Daryl. Trump 2020. Yeah, looks like it. It looks like Trump 2020. No doubts about that, my guy.
I've been saying that since the beginning.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I have.
Word has got to go out, and I certainly would do this as president. You don't worry. People of America, do not worry about the cost of prescription drugs. Do not worry about the cost of the health care that you're going to get, because we are a nation, a civilized, democratic society. Everybody, rich and poor, middle class, will get the care they need. The drug companies will not rip us off.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President Biden, some medical experts are saying the only true way to control this virus is through a national quarantine, requiring every American other than essential personnel to stay home. Would you take that unprecedented step of a national lockdown?
What I would do is what we did in our administration. I would call a meeting in the Situation Room of all the experts in America dealing with this crisis. I would sit them down and I would do exactly what we did then. What is it that we need? Listen to the experts. What do we need? And with all due respect to Medicare for all, you have a single payer system in Italy. It doesn't work there. It has nothing to do with Medicare for all. That would not solve the problem at all. We can take care of that right now by making sure that no one has to pay for treatment, period, because of the crisis. No one has to pay for whatever drugs are needed, period, because of the crisis. No one has to pay for hospitalization because of the crisis, period. That is a national emergency, and that's how it's handled. It is not working in Italy right now, and
Well-
they have a single-payer system. Now, with regard to what else I would do, the fact is that we're in a position where I would bring together the leading experts in the world. Instead of doing this in the United States, instead of doing this piecemeal, sit down and do what we did before with the Ebola crisis. What is needed? And have one voice, like we did every day we met in that crisis in the Situation Room, laying out, so we lay out overall for all the nation what the best proposal is and how to move forward. In the absence of that, governors are making some sound decisions. They're doing the best they can by going out and getting the healthcare experts in their communities
so
and their states
Biden
to
looks
move.
like he's doing
And
okay.
It should be directed from the White House, from the
He's
Situation
doing all
Room,
right.
laying out in detail like we did in the Ebola crisis, and we beat it.
Thank you. Senator
Right.
Sanders, your response?
He's talking
Well,
about
first of all, the dysfunctionality of the current healthcare system is obviously apparent. As I said earlier, there are people who hesitate to go to the doctor. You're going to have a maze of regulations. Well, if this is my income, if that's my income, can I get it? Can I not get it? Clearly, we are not prepared, and Trump only exacerbates the crisis. When we spend twice as much per capita on healthcare as any other nation, one might expect that we would have enough doctors all over this country. One might expect that we would have affordable prescription drugs. One might expect that we are preparing effectively for a pandemic, that we were ready with the ventilators, with the ICUs, with the test kits that we need. We are not. And bottom line here is, in terms of Medicare for all, despite what the vice president is saying, what the experts tell us is that one of the reasons
answer the argument about
that we are
Italy, though.
unprepared and have been unprepared is we don't have a system. We got thousands of private insurance plans. That is not a system that is prepared to provide health care to all people. In a good year, without the epidemic, we're losing up to 60,000 people who die every year because they don't get to a doctor on time.
Jesus.
And clearly this
Yeah.
crisis is only making a bad situation worse.
That has nothing to do when you're in a national crisis. The national crisis says we're responding. It's all free.
The national crisis
You
says
don't
we're
have to pay
responding.
for a thing. That has nothing to do with whether or not you have an insurance policy. This is a crisis. We're at war
What's up,
with the
Shouse?
virus. We're at war with the virus. It has nothing to do with co-pays or anything.
Then why
we
did that?
just passed a law saying that you do not.
No,
have to
Biden,
pay
there's a
for
bunch
any
of people who
this
are not going to the
period.
hospital
true.
because they're not
As a matter of
covered.
fact, that's not true. That law has enormous loopholes. I understand that Nancy Pelosi did her best. Republicans prevented it.
No,
What you're talking about, Joe.
You didn't
here
miss much.
is
They're
enormous
arguing
loopholes
about
within that,
Medicare for
that,
all.
In fact, it is not necessarily covering treatment for all people in America, and that people are going to be stuck with a bill unless we change that. And we're going to offer legislation to, in fact, change that.
if I may, I offered legislation. I laid out on my plan that it would cover exactly what is not covered by the House. I laid out in the plan that I laid out for how we would deal with this crisis. Nobody will pay for anything having to do with the crisis. This is a national emergency. There isn't a question of whether or not this is something that can be covered by insurance or anything else. We, out of the Treasury, are going to pay for this. It's a national emergency.
But you see-
that's what my plan calls for.
But the weakness of this is, let's just do hypothetical. Family members diagnosed with the virus,
Yep.
terrible tragedy, massive anxiety. The wife has the virus, the husband is a wreck, wants to go to a psychologist, wants to get counseling, doesn't have the money to do that. Maybe their kid breaks a leg, they don't have the money to go to healthcare. So you're saying right now, in the middle of a crisis, but you know what? Last year, at least 30,000 people died in America because they didn't get healthcare when they should, because we don't have universal
crazy, huh?
coverage. I think that's a crisis. 1 out of 5 people in America cannot afford the prescription drugs they need.
That's
They
the thing.
suffer. Some die. I consider that a crisis. Bottom line is, we need a simple system which exists in Canada, exists in countries all over the world. And that is,
That's the thing.
if
Does
you
anybody
are
think
an
60,000
American,
Americans are going to
you
die
get the
from
healthcare you
coronavirus?
need.
Does
End of
anybody think
discussion.
that?
We can say
60,000 Americans are dying every year due to a lack of health care. I was talking to somebody yesterday who had symptoms who said they weren't going to go to the hospital because they don't have insurance.
The executives at the prescription drug industry, some of which,
Thank you,
some
Senator
of whom
Vice
are
President
funding
Biden.
his campaign.
This is a national crisis. I don't want to get this into a back and forth in terms of our politics here. I laid out a plan.
You're in a debate.
Obamacare, providing a public option of Medicare, would cover everyone the same way. This
You
idea
get the
that this
Patreon
is
from
his
there.
only answer is a mistaken notion. But regardless of whether my plan was in place or his, this is a crisis. This is like we are being attacked from abroad. This is something that is of great consequence. This is like a war. And in a war, you do whatever is needed to be done to take care of your people. And what you do is and I have proposed it, laid it out in detail. Everything that you need in terms of dealing with this crisis would be free. It is paid for by the taxpayers generally. Generally. It has nothing to do with Bernie's Medicare for all. And by the way,
Vice President
Let
Biden,
me
thank
just-
you. If I may, the Vice President just mentioned war. Would you deploy the U.S. military in effort to contain the virus? And if so, how?
Well, I think we use all
I
of the
see.
tools that make sense. And using the National Guard, which is folks, I think in New York State are already using the National Guard, that is something that has to be done. This is clearly, as the Vice President indicated, a national emergency. And what I worry about is not only how we respond aggressively to the virus, but also how we respond aggressively to the economic fallout of a global recession. So right now, in Illinois and Ohio, if my memory is correct, the governor there has said they're closing down bars, they're closing down restaurants. What happens to the workers who are there? What happens to the millions of workers who may end up losing their jobs? So what I think we have got to do right now is if Trump can provide, or the Fed can provide $1.5 trillion for liquidity for the banks, well, we've got to say to every worker in America, you know what? Don't panic. You'll be able to pay your mortgage because you're going to get a check. You're going to be made
Senator, we're going
whole.
to talk about the economic. Go ahead, Mr. Vice
the
President.
answer is I would call out the military.
Okay.
Now, they have the capacity to provide this surge help that hospitals need and that is needed across the nation. I would make sure that they did exactly what they're prepared to do. They've done it. They did it in the Ebola crisis. They've done it.
Hey, don't
They
do
have
that over the
capacity
computer,
to
bro.
build 500-bed hospitals and are in tents that are completely safe and secure and provide the help to get it done to anybody.
Use the
that's
one that she
overflow.
just made.
So it is a national emergency.
So
I
just
would
get rid of that
call
one, please.
out
Or
the
you can
military.
have that
The
one.
Ebola crisis is one thing. This is obviously a pandemic, which is far more severe.
Yeah,
and impactful
why is he
to this
bringing up
country.
Ebola?
And I think one of the
This
things
is
that
not
we
like
have to remember
Ebola was. What are you
is that we have
talking
a lot
about,
of
Biden?
elderly people in this country who are told, stay home, don't leave your house. Who's going to get food to them?
Yeah.
How do we get food to them?
Amazon.
You got schools all over this country now being shut down. Okay? How are we going to make sure that the kids do well in this crisis, not become traumatized? What do we do about the parents now who have to stay home with the kids and can't go
It's such a
to work?
mess.
So I think what
I know.
bottom
It's
line here
horrible.
is that in this crisis, we have got to start paying attention.
Exactly,
to the most
Hector.
vulnerable. That includes
50 people have
in
died.
places
What are we
right now.
talking about bringing the
People who are
military in
homeless
for?
shelters.
This is
What
crazy.
about the 500,000 people who are homeless tonight? Who's going to respond to them? Now, in 2008, when we had the Wall Street bailout, they did very well for the people on top. They bailed out the crooks on. They forgot about
We
and
have,
the most
we have
vulnerable.
learned that lesson. And again, I lay out in
just turned
detail.
off the
What we
camera.
should be doing now is we should be
got up.
surging help to those places which are the most vulnerable. We should have every single person that's in a nursing home being able to be tested. We should be moving forces in to do that. We should move in the capability in to do that. We should be sitting down, the president should be sitting down in the
Check out the
situation room right
previewer.
now and do what we did before and asking the
Yeah.
question, okay, you're going to close everything. If you close everything, how do you get prescriptions that have to be filled? How do you make sure when you close that school, those children are going to be able to get the school food program? How do you make sure that you're going to be able to see to it that you get your mortgage paid? I propose that all of that be covered, and it's going to take a multi-billion-dollar program to do that. But first things first. The first thing is take care of the immediate needs we have now relating to surging the kind of capability we
baby.
have to prevent this great
bro.
bump in terms of this, how it's going to cause such pain, as well as moving
great
in the direction
bump is how
of
much
making
it's gonna
sure we
cost.
have long-term plans.
Thank you,
Bernie's-
Mr. Vice President.
Bernie's
We're gonna talk
waiting
in a moment
on,
a lot more about the economic impact. But
Biden to
Senator
melt down
Sanders,
mentally.
I want to ask about China. When this outbreak first started in China, the government there censored the whistleblower doctor who sounded the alarm and downplayed the true gravity of the virus.
Right.
What consequences should China face for its role in this global crisis?
Well, one of the consequences is we have got to learn that you cannot lie to the American people. You cannot be less than frank about the nature of the crisis. And what bothers me very much is you have a president of the United States today, Mr. Trump, who is praising China for the good work that they are doing, when in fact, as you indicated, they were lying to their own people and allowing that virus to move much more aggressively than should have been the case. Look, I don't think this is the time for reclamation, to be punishing people. Now is the time, by the way, to be working with China. They are learning a lot about this crisis.
I agree.
And in fact, we have got to work with them.
We all have to work together.
Yeah.
We got to work with
It's a global
Italy. We got
thing.
to work with countries around the world. If there was ever a moment,
Yeah, Trump is playing the blame game. It's a Chinese fault. It doesn't matter whose fault
Right.
it is.
We just got to get a solution now.
We can talk about whose fault it is
That's why
when we're out. When
Yeah.
we're done with
That's
this
why I
situation.
insist that the moment this broke out,
Jeez.
that we should insist on having our experts in China to see what was happening, and make it clear to China there'd be consequences if we did not have that access. And we have to lead the world. We should be the ones doing.
Since there's a shortage of valid test kits in the U.S., we don't even know how many people are contagious.
That's true.
You's about to get hit in a couple of weeks with the true results. Amy Lee is right.
That's true.
She's right about that.
All nations are affected the same way by this virus, depending on exposure. And so we need world leadership. We need international leadership. We need someone who knows how to bring the world together and insist on fundamental change in the way in which we're approaching this.
Senator Sanders?
well, the bottom line here is that in the midst of this crisis, we have got to act in an
Hey,
unprecedented
Laguna Star, appreciate you, buddy.
And that means
Or
every
Lagoon
country
Nassar
on earth
31.
is
My
going to
governor
be
of
affected.
Illinois
Every
said
country on
restaurants
earth
and bars will be
has got to
closed for the
work
rest of
together.
March.
Also
Yeah, man.
means that we tell
Laguna, how are people
pharmaceutical
taking it
industry,
over
we
there?
tell the big money interests
I just think that this is financially going to set so many people back.
This
Well,
is a
yeah, I
time
mean,
for
it's-
all of us working
we were
together. The World Health
on the
Organization
peak of a
is
boom, and
very,
now
very
we're looking
strong
at a
organization.
recession again.
Yep.
It is sad that we have a president that has ignored the international community in so many ways, including in terms of international health crises.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Obviously, another part of this story is the economy, which is reeling from this pandemic. Many economists are warning of a recession. Just hours ago, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates to near
0%,
0%,
basically.
which has not happened since the financial crisis in 2008. Vice President Biden, what would you do?
What I would do is make it clear to the world and make it clear to the United States that we are going to have a major bailout package, that we do not reward corporations, we reward individuals.
Like you did
who, in
last
fact,
time?
are really put to the test here. The problem is the policies of this administration economically
You were at the helm when the corporations got bailed out. Biden, what are you talking about?
Have been used up by this god-awful tax code of $1.9.
That's why Elizabeth Warren had to get at you. What is going on? He probably literally forgot that it was his team.
They've already used what leverage they have. And so we're going to have to just level with the American people. And here's the deal. We're going to have to not only deal with the immediate crisis, economic crisis, which is the most critical now, to let people know their mortgages are going to be paid, their rents are going to be paid, they're going to have child care, they're going to make sure that all their medical bills are cared for relating to this, etc. We have to go beyond that. And we're going to have to be in a situation where we're meeting on a daily basis, like we did in the middle of the financial crisis, decide how we are going to find the wherewithal and the money to be able to see to
Right, Graham.
hold all these folks harmless, but not do what Trump wants to do. For example, he came along and said, "I got a great idea. You're going to tell me."
Senator Sanders?
Oh my God! It's beginning with Biden.
Total crisis
It's beginning with Biden.
exposes the dysfunctionality of our healthcare system and how poorly prepared we are
Yep.
despite how much
Graham,
we
you got it, buddy. Me and you
And the Ebola
we're here.
crisis is also, I think,
Bernie Sanders
exposing
is a
the
day older
cruelty
than my pops.
and the unjustness
Really?
of our economy today. We have more income and wealth inequality in America today.
Yep.
than
She
any
cut
other
him off so
country.
Biden didn't expose
What
himself
that means
more.
is in
Correct.
the midst of this
Correct.
crisis, if you're a multimillionaire, no one's happy about this crisis. You're going to get through it. You're going to get everything you need. You're not worried about health care. You're not worried about income coming in.
A multimillionaire like
Half
you?
of our people are living paycheck to paycheck.
Mhm.
We got people who are struggling, working 2 or 3 jobs to put food on the table. What is going to happen to them? So the lesson to be learned is we have got to move aggressively right now to address the economic crisis as a result of Ebola. As a result, keep talking about Ebola. You got Ebola in my head here right now. As a result of the virus.
Laguna, thank you again. People are going crazy. I went today to buy my weekly groceries. Store empty. All could buy is bread and 2 cans of sardines. Yikes.
Whoa.
And how unjust and unfair
Yikes.
Went to
it
5
is
different
that so
stores.
few have so much and so many have so little.
People are looking for results, not a revolution. They want to deal with the results they need right now. And we can do that by making sure that we make everybody whole who has
25
been
minutes
so
old?
badly
Yeah.
hurt. In terms of if they lose the job, in terms of not having the ability to care for their children, in terms of the
I don't
healthcare
care
costs that
about
they
the
have
blame
in dealing with
shifting,
this
Ron.
crisis, we
They were
can
part of
make
it.
them
They were the
whole.
ones that bailed it out.
Now.
They got to own it.
Now.
I'm so sick and
Put in
tired of the blame
process
shifting.
a system
If
whereby
Obama was
all
against it, he didn't have to sign
that
it.
has nothing to do with the legitimate concern about income equality in America. That's real. That's
What if
real.
we watch this from
But
our
that
phone?
does not
Oh, this is
affect the
fine.
need for
That's
us
on
to
Mark
act
Line
swiftly
5G. We're
and
good.
very thoroughly and in concert with all the forces that we need to bring to bear to deal with the crisis now. So no one's thrown out of their home. No one loses their mortgage. No one is kicked out of their house. No one loses their paycheck. No one is in a position where they have a significant financial disability.
Here's Becky.
as a
It'd be so much
consequence
better
of
if the
this
government controlled everything in our
this
lives.
particular crisis.
Thank you, Vice President. Senator Sanders.
Like?
Well, I think
No, let's just cut all entitlements. Every man for themselves, Becky.
as a
Let's cut
nation,
everything.
We have to respond as forcefully as we can to the
Unbelievable.
current crisis. But it is not good enough not to be understanding how we got here and where we want to go into the future. So how does it happen that today, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, half of our people are scared to death? Good. I agree. In fact, that was my idea originally, to make sure that every person in this country is made
At this
whole
point, the only
as a
person that
result
could
of
save the
this
Dems
crisis.
is Oprah.
But God willing, this crisis is going to end.
Oprah would not be a good president. What the hell does Oprah know about running a whole country? The whole country?
And struggling to put food on the table.
What does she know? Okay, so you put Oprah in a room with the Chinese to make trade deals. Who do you think's coming out on top in that discussion?
Incredibly
I don't know anything about
consequential to millions and millions of Americans. And it's not going to be solved by a change in tax policy now. It's not going to be solved by a change in
Okay,
how we deal
well,
with
Becky,
healthcare.
let's just cut
It's
all
gonna be solved
entitlements
with
and
an
everybody work
emergency
hard for
need
what they get.
Right now, what do we do? First thing we do is make sure that healthcare is available by us having the tools to be able to deal with it, and that requires
No,
us
Becky,
to
the
go out and
individual
do
knows
much more
best.
than
So let's
this
all
thing
just
we've
cut
done
everything.
before.
Everybody,
Secondly,
every man
requires
for
us to be in a
themselves.
position where we're
No
anticipating
entitlements, no
what will happen in the
welfare,
next month or
no
weeks
social
in terms
security,
of
no
the flow
disability.
into the
VA
healthcare
benefits.
system by bringing the military along, more hospital beds, more training, more equipment to save the first responders as well. In addition to that, we then have
That's
to
a good
also
point,
look at
though, saving
what are
the first
immediate
responders.
needs right today.
What's going
How
on,
about that
Bob?
person who's
Yeah.
been laid off today? How about that person who doesn't have an income today? They have to know that tomorrow, that when the paycheck comes due, you will get that paycheck. And thirdly, we have to think long term about how we deal with making all those who've been badly damaged right again. And then we move on. Then we move on to change the economy in ways that are more profoundly necessary than people think, but do not respond to the immediate needs we have now. First things first.
Thank you, Vice
Now, I
President.
feel good about
Senator
Trump in a
Sanders,
room with the
You
Chinese
voted against
debating
bailouts
trade.
following the 2008 financial crisis.
I feel good about that,
Many
don't you?
believe those spending bills were a crucial part of stabilizing the economy back then. Would you support bailouts for industries that are being crushed by the coronavirus outbreak now?
I did. You're quite right. I voted against the bailout because I believed that the illegal behavior being done by the people on Wall Street should not be rewarded by a bailout. And today, by the way, those banks are more prosperous and own more assets by and large than they did back then. They're bigger now than they were then. I thought at the time that in the midst of massive income and wealth inequality, the people on top through a surtax on the very wealthy should bail out. And it's not just the talk bailout. We gave trillions of dollars in zero interest loans to large banks. But to answer your question where we are right now, we need to stabilize the economy. But we can't repeat what we did in 2008. Joe voted for that. I voted against it.
Good, Bernie. You finally went at him. Good job.
For the oil companies. Our job right now is to tell every working person in this country, no matter what your income is, you are not going to suffer as a result of.
So let's keep the social benefits that we benefit from, and then screw everybody else. They can just pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Deep, deep trouble. All those little folks. We'd have gone out of business. They'd find themselves in a position where they would lose everything that they had in that bank, whether it was $10 or $300 or a savings account. This was about saving an economy, and it did save the economy. And the banks paid back, and they paid back with interest. I agree with Bernie. Some of them should have gone to jail. That was the big disagreement I had in terms of bailing out. But the question was, they paid back.
But you did. You bailed them out.
So part of that was bailing out the automobile industry, saving thousands of jobs, tens of thousands of jobs over time. He voted against that as well.
No, I did not vote against that. That bailout money was used later on by Bush.
Okay, maybe you can give us your alternative, Stephen, because I asked for an alternative a couple weeks ago to Medicare for all so that we don't have 40 to 60,000 Americans dying a year because of lack of health insurance, and I was given no alternative. So maybe you have an alternative. How would you solve that problem?
Who have profited off of the illegal behavior of individuals, in this case on Wall Street. You know what you say to them? You want to, and I did. I said this to the Secretary of Treasury. You want to bail out? That's fine. You have your friends pay for it, not working people. The other point is, as Joe should know, it wasn't just the $700 billion PAR program. The Fed gave trillions and trillions of dollars in zero interest loans to every financial institution in this country and central banks all over the world. That
100% true.
Grant.
That was a grant. If you give somebody a 0% interest loan for the life of the loan, that's a grant. That's what that is.
The fact of the matter is that if, in fact, the banks had all been gone under, we would be in a Great Depression. We would have not. How do you get out of that? Now, Bernie's saying that I guess he's going to do a wealth tax or something, that the top 1% could pay for everything, and they should pay for everything that occurred. We were talking about tens and hundreds of billions of dollars. That's what this was about. And the fact was that it saved the economy from going into a depression. After we passed the Recovery Act, which I was the one when I got the 3 votes to get it changed, that had $900
What's up, Jet Jag? I'm not saying it was intentional, but I do find it interesting that this virus reared its ugly head when Trump signed a deal with China months ago.
Many of the 11 million undocumented immigrants and now even many legal immigrants in the United States are afraid
I have to think about that
medical
one.
help. How do you ensure they feel safe enough to get treatment to help stop the spread of coronavirus?
Because they're undocumented.
Anyone who shows
And
up
if they show up, then they might get shipped
tested
out.
for coronavirus or gets coronavirus and is treated would be held harmless. Just like I've argued all along, any woman who crosses the border or is here and being beaten by her husband, but she's an undocumented, she cannot be deported because she reports. There are certain things you cannot deport an undocumented alien for, an undocumented person for, and that would be one of them. We want that. It's in the interest of everyone. And those folks who are
Look, when somebody just shrugs off 40 to 60,000 people dying and saying, whatever, I don't care about anybody's feelings.
Because it deals with keeping the spread from moving more rapidly.
I don't care.
They will not.
I don't care how you
should
feel.
not, under any circumstances, be held accountable and
I'm pro-life.
Be deported for
When
that.
people start holding people's lives cheap, I don't care how you feel.
The proposal for Medicare for all that I introduced includes making sure that undocumented
I love you.
people are
I just
also
don't care how you feel.
And right now we have the absurd situation where undocumented people who try to do the right thing, they're sick, they want to go to the doctor, they don't want to spread this disease.
See, this is a softball question that both of them are going to answer the same way. So you can't see a real contrast between Bernie and Biden here.
Getting the health
This is not an issue.
General principle above and beyond
Why even
the
ask the question
coronavirus.
then?
Second of all, we've got to end
because
these
they want to
terrible
carry
ice raids,
Biden. Look at him;
which
he's
are
starting to
terrorizing
look all.
communities all over this country.
He's starting to. They
And
want to
thirdly,
carry
answer your
Biden
question,
so he doesn't make a
the time
major
is long
screw
overdue
up.
for this country to move to comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship for those 11 million undocumented. And furthermore, on day one as president, I would restore the legal status of the 1.8
Senator,
million
thank you. We're
young
going to talk
people
about
in
immigration in a minute, but first I want to ask about something that's going on right now. Again, back
Is
to
there like a
this
time thing? Why do
crisis.
they
We
keep
know that
stopping
people over the age
Sanders,
of
but they haven't?
60
They do.
and those with underlying
it's like
medical
45,
conditions,
like minute
especially
45
heart
seconds,
disease,
something
lung
like that.
disease, and diabetes, are the most vulnerable to coronavirus and are being asked to change their behavior to protect themselves. So, Senator Sanders, I'll start with you. You're 78
Yeah.
years old. You had a heart attack. What are you doing to protect yourself?
Well, a great deal.
You
Last
had a
night
heart
we
attack.
had a,
You see that?
a
You think they're
fireside
gonna?
chat.
You think they're
Not
gonna
a
talk
rap.
about?
I
You
love
think
His
they're gonna talk
mental
about his
state?
mental
No.
state? No, but they're going after. You had a heart attack.
We're not doing that right now. In
Cut the
fact,
military
our
budget.
entire staff
Military budget, the biggest
is
piece of the
working
pie.
from home.
We're ahead of 11
So-
countries
See,
under us
if-
combined. Correct.
If Bernie, after he
I'm not
answered this
shaking
question,
hands.
if he
Joe and I do
said,
not shake
but
hands. And I am very careful. about
Right.
the people
And then he
I am
needs to go
but if
after
he would have
Biden.
gone after Biden after this,
But is he going to go after
No.
Biden? No.
soap and hand sanitizers to make sure that I do not get the
no,
infection.
the Satan video is going to
And
be
I have
coming
to
out. We're
say,
going to release
you
it
know, thank
soon.
God
Right.
now, I
So
do
while
not
you
have
are
any
trying to figure out how to
symptoms
do it, but
that
you
I
don't
feel
want socialism or you don't want the government to
President
know,
Biden, you're
people keep
77.
dying,
What are you
Becky.
doing to protect yourself?
Well, fortunately, I don't have any of the underlying conditions you talked about that I have to worry about.
Whoa.
Wow.
I didn't hear. I was
Thank
thinking about
God,
something.
for the time being.
He said, I don't have any
So
underlying
knock on
conditions.
wood That I'm in good health.
He said, knock on
Number
wood, and
three,
you're not going.
I'm
You're in good
taking
health.
all the precautions anyone would take, whether they're 30
So they
years
asked
old,
about
60
Biden.
years
They
old,
asked
or
about
80.
Bernie's physical health, but
That is,
not
I wanna make sure that I
Biden's
do not
medical
Wow.
mental
shake
health.
hands any longer. I do not engage. We did the same thing. Our staff is all working from home. We are not doing rallies any longer. We're doing virtual rallies. We're doing virtual town hall meetings. We're in a situation where now I do not, as I said, when we encounter people, we're not going into crowds. And so I'm taking all the precautions everyone else should be taking.
So the question is, what are you doing about coronavirus? That was actually the question. But then she brings up the heart attack. Wow. I mean, the heart attack is pertinent to coronavirus. That's fine. But wow.
And so on. So I'm taking all the precautions.
I'm tired of the DNC choosing who is going to be
Let's
the
turn to the race
nominee.
more broadly
That's exactly
now.
what's happening.
Throughout this campaign,
That's
you've
exactly
laid
what's
out
happening, and the
starkly
media is
different
playing along with
for
it.
how to bring about change. Vice
Why do you
President
keep
Biden,
expecting fair treatment? I have no
Senators are
idea.
calling for a political revolution. You said people want results, not a revolution. Make the case for why a revolution is not what the country needs or wants.
We have problems we have to solve now. Now, what's a revolution going to do? Disrupt everything in the meantime? Look, Bernie talks about, the senator talks about his Medicare for all. He still hasn't told you how he's going to ever get it passed. He hasn't told you how, in fact, there's any possibility of that happening. He hadn't told you how much it's going to cost. He hadn't tell you how it's going to apply. It doesn't kick in for 4 years even after it passes. We want a revolution. Let's act now. Pass the Biden healthcare plan, which takes Obamacare, restores all the cuts made to it, subsidizes further, provides for lower drug prices, make sure that there's no hidden bills, make sure that we invest, what I want to invest $50 billion in dealing with underlying diseases that are of great consequence, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and cancer. Make sure that we have a Medicare option that's in a public option providing Medicare.
100%, Burn
We can
Man.
do that now.
100%.
I can get that passed. I can get that done.
The Biden healthcare plan.
That will be a
Even Bernie
fundamental
laughed at that one,
change that
Kel.
happens now. I can tell you from experience, being a significant consumer of healthcare with my sons, my family, all the things we've gone through. What people want is hope, and they need it now, not 4 years from now. And Bernie still hasn't told us how he's going to pay for it. We're talking about a $30+ trillion plan.
Not quite true.
Senator,
Look,
Come on,
let's
Bernie.
do something that is very rarely done in the Congress. Let's do something that the media doesn't do. Let's talk about the reality of American life. Why is it that over the last 45 years, despite the huge increase in productivity and technology, the average worker today is not making a nickel more in real dollars? Why is it
In
that
what?
over the
In
last
real life?
30 years,
Real
the
dollars.
richest
Real
1% have seen a $21 trillion increase in their wealth, bottom half of America, $900 billion decline. in
See
their
how they phrased the previous question?
Why is it that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right? Why are we the only major country not to have
Exactly,
paid
Graham.
medical
Not quite
family
true.
leave? Why do we give tax breaks to billionaires?
He just can't come out and say he's lying.
And it comes down to something
Bernie's losing this
we
debate,
don't talk about.
and he's losing the
power
whole thing.
structure in America. Who has the power? And I'll tell you who has the power. It's the people who contribute money, the billionaires who contribute money to political campaigns, who control the legislative agenda.
You're
Those
right,
people
Kel.
have the
You're right
power.
about that.
And if you want to make real
With
changes
Obamacare.
in this country, if you want to create an economy that works for all, not just a few, if you want to guarantee quality health care to all, not make $100 billion in profit for the healthcare industry, you know what you need? You need to take on Wall Street. You need to take on the drug companies and the insurance companies and the fossil fuel industry. You don't take campaign contributions from them. You take them on and create an economy that works for all.
You want to do that? Do what I proposed over 30 years ago. Federally fund all elections. No
What?
private contributions in the election process. You want to do that?
What?
Join me.
That's extremely
That's a
fishy.
disaster.
That's
Yeah.
extremely freaking
That would be a
fishy.
disaster. What are you talking about?
That would fundamentally change it. And the implication is I'm getting these, I've not accepted a contribution from anybody over $2,800, number one.
Nobody
My
has.
average contribution is $44. Just this month, I've raised $33 million. Average contribution, $51. The idea that this is Bernie's implication is somehow I'm being funded by millionaires. Bernie, look, in the last Super Tuesday and before that, Bernie outspent me 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 1. And I still won.
They're talking about
I didn't have any
campaign.
money.
I don't. What does that matter?
Senator Sanders?
It's good that you had an idea 30 years ago. I don't want to join you. Why don't you join me? Why don't you get rid of the super PAC that you have right now, which is running very ugly negative ads about me, by the way. Don't laugh, Joe. That's just the truth. And they got 2 other super PACs running ads against us. Why don't you just say right now, go on television and say, hey, you know what? I think in the past, Joe, if I'm not mistaken, you condemned super PACs. Is that correct?
You get rid of the 9 super PACs you have?
I don't have 9 super. I don't have
You
any
have
super
9.
PACs.
You want me to list them?
No, yeah, you go ahead and listen.
Okay, come on. Give me a break.
No, I
Because
mean-
you're lying!
Wow.
He just literally just made up a number and then said Bernie has these super PACs.
In the richest country in the history
Name
of
them!
the world, half of our people should not be struggling.
That's the other thing about Biden. He's an inveterate liar. He just makes shit up.
Wow.
I get. Was one of those super PACs funded by Nelson Mandela? There, Joe.
Not only dominate the
What
political
is
system,
going
but
on?
dominate our economy as well. Somebody makes a decision. We're going to shut down a factory in America. We're going to move to China. We're going to move to Mexico. Pay people starvation.
That's right,
wages.
Shagath.
This is an
Do what I did 30 years ago. Promote segregation.
Who
Right.
has the power in America? Are we content with
I need to
so few
fact check this
exercising
shit.
so much power and so many people giving up on the
Political
process?
Action
I
Committee.
propose
They
a significant change
get a
to
bunch
the
of
tax
money
code
together
I've
and give it to
proposed for
somebody.
a long, long time. Number one. Number two, it's not just about taxing the super wealthy. It's about making sure everybody pays their fair share. For example, I can pay for my whole healthcare plan by changing the way in which we deal with capital gains. People should pay their capital gains based on what their income tax is, and not at 20%. That would raise $800 billion, pay for my entire medical healthcare plan, which would cover everyone. The fact of the matter is, everything I call for, I pay for. And I do not believe, and I have not supported these exorbitant tax cuts for the wealthy. I strongly opposed the tax cut that this president has put through of $1.9 trillion. And I said at the time,
It sounds
this
like
is
he
all
just made
about
that
trying to
number.
eliminate the
Billion,
safety net.
trillion.
1 trillion,
The
900
idea
billion.
that Bernie implies when he says things, speaking of negative ads, my Lord, Bernie, you're running ads saying I'm opposed to Social Security. That PolitiFact says is a
You
flat
did!
lie.
You said 4 times that you
It's
were!
a flat lie.
Oh, well, let me ask you a question, Joe.
Yeah.
You're right here with me.
Yeah,
Have you been on the floor of the Senate? You were in the Senate for a few years.
yeah.
Time and time
Bye.
again, talking about the necessity, with pride, about cutting Social Security, cutting Medicare, cutting veterans programs.
No,
You never said that.
no.
All right. America, go to the website right now. Go to the YouTube right now. Time after time, you were not a fan
You
of Bill
lied.
Simpson.
I was not a fan of
You were
both.
not a fan of the balanced budget amendment, which called for cuts in Social Security. Come on, Joe, you won.
Look, here's the
You're
deal.
an honest guy. Why don't you just tell the truth here? We all make mistakes.
I am telling the truth. You said that why am I rated 96% by the Social Security Organization? Why am I viewed as a strong?
All that I said.
I have laid out how
Get
I
him!
increase Social Security.
Well, that's good. I laid that out.
I have laid out how I'm going to make sure that
Go to the
Come
YouTube
on,
right now.
Bernie.
Get him, Bernie!
Joe Biden
Get him, Bernie!
Exchange with Paul Ryan on his desire to try to privatize.
Lying bastard.
Okay.
Kellandros, can you believe this dude just got up here and lied like that?
Joe, let me repeat it again. I want you just to be straight with the American people. I am saying that you have been on the floor of the Senate time and time again talking about the need to cut Social Security, Medicare, and veterans programs. Is that true or is that
No,
not
it's
true?
not true.
That is not true?
That is not true. What is true is, in terms of the negotiations that are
Now
taking
call
place,
him a
I was the
liar.
opposite. Everything was on
Do
the table. I
it.
did not support any
He
of
said
those
3
cuts.
times
And Social
specifically. He
Security or
specifically
veterans-
said Social Security.
Everything was on the table. All right, you're right. You just said it, including, in your judgment, cuts to Social Security and veterans.
In order to get the kinds of changes we need.
That's a
on
yes.
other
That's a yes.
things-
That's a
There you go.
yes,
That's a
then,
yes.
you lying son of a bitch!
I know, because people like me help stop that. But Joe, you just contradicted yourself.
Oh shit.
1 minute, excuse me. 1 minute you said I was not on the floor. The next minute you say, well, yes, there was a reason why I was worried about the deficit. Maybe
Get
that's
him.
good reason, maybe it's not. All that I am saying
Get
is
him.
you were prepared to cut and advocated for the cuts of
Let's
programs.
just.
Let me-
Wow.
I did not.
That was
I
intense.
never
And
voted
then he's-
to cut Social.
Not talking about voting, Joe. That's not what I
never
said.
voted. But look, I voted to protect it. Just go look at the debate with Paul Ryan for the vice presidency. Look at what I did. And Bernie, will you acknowledge your campaign took out of context that whole exchange between Paul Ryan? Are you saying PolitiFact is wrong? Are you saying?
Yeah, well,
Yes, political fact is wrong.
Political fact is wrong a whole lot of times.
Yep, we shot a whole video about how PolitiFact was wrong with
Yeah.
Margaret Sanger.
Joe,
Yeah.
Joe, wait a minute. I'll answer your question.
We have a video of you saying this shit, Joe.
All right.
One more time.
You have
Were you
PolitiFact.
on the floor time and time again, for whatever reason,
Wow.
talking about the need to cut Social Security and Medicare and veterans programs?
No, I did not talk about the need to cut any of those programs.
Okay, all that I would say to the American people, go to YouTube. It's all over the place. Joe said it many, many times. I'm surprised. You can defend or change. your
Imply
mind,
that he
but
forgot.
You can't deny the reality.
Say maybe you forgot. Say something about his mind, Bernie.
About it. I want to ask you about something that you wrote in 1996.
Now here comes the moderator. Watch this.
And
Watch
you wrote
this.
an op-ed that said, quote, "It is clear we will have to make incremental adjustments in Social Security taxes and benefits."
Yeah.
Why are your past comments any less relevant than...
You see how they're coming to defend this guy? Do
Yeah.
you see how the media industrial complex works?
That's crazy.
For years.
Wow.
Among other things, increasing the cost of living assistance. No, you're not going to find me ever calling for cuts to Social Security. Right now, for example, we determine COLAs by looking at inflation for the general population rather than segregating the higher costs that seniors are paying for prescription drugs and for health care. That's what I
Where's
was talking
Biden's factory
about. I
reset
have,
button?
in fact, when Joe and others were enamored
I'm
with
going
the
to post for you
so-called
guys the
bonus
Joe
system,
Biden comments right now.
the Social
Unbelievable.
Security are raising the retirement age. I formed, along with people like Barbara Boxer, the Defending Social Security Caucus to say no. When 20% of our seniors are trying to get by on $13,000 a year or more, we are not going to cut Social Security.
Vice President Biden, yesterday you endorsed an Elizabeth Warren plan that would undo key parts of the bankruptcy law you helped pass in 2005. A few hours ago, you announced support for making public college tuition free for families who make less than $125,000 a year, something Senator Sanders has supported. What changed?
Two things. Number one, let's talk about the bankruptcy bill. The bankruptcy bill was passing overwhelmingly, and I improved it. I had a choice. It was going to pass, a Republican president, Republican Congress, and I offered 2 amendments to make sure that people under $50,000 would not be affected, and women and children would go to the front of the line on alimony and support payments. That's what I did. It passed overwhelmingly. I did not like the rest of the bill, but I improved it, number one. Number two, I've talked with Senator Warren about her proposal. This is the first opportunity we've had to make substantial change
And
in
then-
what we couldn't get done in the Republican
And then they bring up
administration.
Warren,
That's why we
who's
talked
the
about it 2 nights
progressive,
ago,
and they're showing a correlation between Warren and Biden, thereby marginalizing Bernie even more. All these questions are designed to promote
in
Biden.
terms of college education. I've been saying for a long time that we're in a position where 12 years of education
She should
is
conspiracy
not
video.
enough. Is not enough for the 21st century. We need 16 years of education. The exact bill that Senator Sanders introduced, I guess a little over a year ago, capping it off at $125,000 in income. You could get free up to that point. After that, you'd have to pay for your college education. It only worked for public schools, and it would work for public universities in your state. I support that idea. It was a good idea, and I support it. And so that's what it is. And I'm not saying everything
it's
Bernie
almost like
said has been wrong. He happens to be right on
live in
that.
poverty.
Senator Sanders, I
You
assume you
save more
welcome
money.
these changes.
You know what I mean?
Look, this is a little bit about leadership as well. Joe talked about bankruptcy. Joe, if my memory is correct, you helped write that
Let's
bankruptcy.
say you make
I did not.
All right?
$125,000.
And that
Or
bankruptcy
live.
bill, by the way, when we talk about education, we got 45 million
Cut some
people in
hours, make
America
90,000.
struggling
You
with
don't have to pay for
student
your
debt.
kids' college.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
of them are really
Yeah.
struggling with student debt. And that bankruptcy bill made it impossible, very difficult for people.
Elizabeth
to
hasn't
escape
endorsed
from that
anyone
student
as
debt.
of
It was
yet.
a very, very bad bill. You said, Joe, that a majority of the people in the Senate voted for it. You're right.
Overwhelming majority.
Overwhelmingly. Well, I voted against it in the House, and I was right. And I don't have to rethink my position because that's what leadership is.
I know,
about, having
TCA.
the
They'll
guts
still say the
to take
DNC
an
isn't
unpopular
corrupt.
vote. But it's not just bankruptcy. The difference between Joe and I on higher education.
Look how they're formulating these questions.
I know, it's not right.
Does Sanders welcome Biden's new support for bankruptcy reform and some free college tuition, which has been his platforms the entire time, and he's got a watered down version of it, and they're
Yeah.
saying Biden
Yeah.
support. It's the whole thing is about Biden. It's unbelievable to
that
me.
are moving in that direction. And I'm glad that Joe is on board. But what leadership is about is going forward.
You're absolutely right, Amy Lee. I was saying that right from the beginning with the impeachment nonsense.
So I'm proud of that fact, and I'm proud of my leadership on many issues. Joe, since the campaign has come around, I talked about raising that minimum wage $15 an hour 4 years ago, Joe.
So did I, and I went out and
$15 an hour?
$15 an hour, New York City. Go talk to the governor.
I will talk to the governor. I'm not aware of that.
All right.
I am not aware
You
of
should
that.
be aware.
Go talk to the
Yeah, but
governor.
you can't believe what
But
Biden is
Pace-
saying.
People in Congress.
No,
were
please,
talking
sorry.
about.
They're so
De
full
Blasio?
Well, here, look.
De Blasio?
Yeah, like which
Stop
governor?
and frisk?
The bankruptcy bill already
Right. Bloomberg?
did not
Who?
affect student debt for 90%.
He said 15 years ago. Did he say 15 years
Yeah,
ago?
I think that's what he
It's
said.
$15. He said 15 years ago. He's just making stuff up as he goes along.
From private institutions.
Ridiculous.
Couldn't do it. Because the bankruptcy bill didn't affect that.
$15
It affected 10% of the people, the first bankruptcy bill. 10% of the student loans, number one. Number two, now we're in a position where we're able to correct that problem. The fact is, if I hadn't stepped up and changed the law as it relates to people making less than $50,000, those who for alimony and child support, then guess what? They would have been in the bucket too. It was going to pass anyway. Let me finish. I made it incrementally better. I did not like the bill. I did not support the bill, and I made it clear to the industry I didn't like the bill. Number two, this bill now calls for the opportunity to fundamentally change the mistakes we couldn't correct in the bill the first time around. And that is why I support Elizabeth Warren's idea. And it's a very good idea.
Senator Sanders, go ahead.
Well, this is kind of circular logic. We're going to reform the bill that I voted for. Well, if you hadn't voted for it, and if you had rallied other people, as I try to do in the House, voting against it, we might not have the problems with it we have today.
Correct.
What leadership is about, Joe, and it deals with, whether, your opposition or your support, I should say, for legislation regarding gay communities and the so-called Defense of Marriage Act. You remember that bill, right?
Uh-oh.
You remember the Defense of Marriage Act?
Going after him for DOMA.
Gay marriage today is considered a little bit differently than it was 25 years ago. I remember that vote. It was a very hard vote. I voted against the Defense of Marriage Act. You voted for it. I voted against the bankruptcy bill. You voted for it. I voted against the war in Iraq, which was also a tough vote. You voted for it. I voted against disastrous
Well,
trade
he's saying at
agreements
least some.
like NAFTA and PNTR with China, which cost this country over 4 million good-paying jobs. You voted for it. I voted against the Hyde Amendment, which denies low-income women the right to get an abortion. You have consistently voted for it. I don't know what your position is on it today, but you have consistently voted for it. In other words, all that I'm saying here, we can argue about the merits of the bill.
Vice President Biden.
It takes courage sometimes to do the right thing.
We can argue about the past and the future. This man voted against the Brady bill 5 times. Background checks 5 times. Number one. Number two, this man is the only one of the few Democrats I know who voted to exempt the gun industry from being able to be sued. Talk about a special interest.
That's weird.
We should be able to sue drug companies. We should be able to sue tobacco companies. We cannot sue the gun manufacturers.
Yikes.
Because he voted for that years ago. He says it was a mistake now. I'm prepared to accept he says it's a mistake.
Well, that's better than lying,
what do we
Joe.
do from this point on? And by the way, I might add, I'm the first person to go on national television in any administration and say I supported gay marriage. I supported gay marriage when asked. And it started a ripple effect. I'm not taking all credit for it, but I'm the first major player.
You
to
voted
say,
for
I
DOMA.
support gay marriage on national television.
Yeah, but you voted for DOMA.
Leadership.
We can argue, this or that bill. But what I'm suggesting is that in this time of crisis, when we're living in a really, really unsettling world, economically, from a healthcare perspective, of the coronavirus, the people of America know my record, okay? For 30 years, I have stood with the working families of this country. I have taken on every special interest there is out there. And that is what I will do in the White House. That's a very different record than Joe's.
That is not a different record than mine.
That is a totally different record than yours. All right? I mean, and it's manifested in this campaign when you're, getting all this money from, wealthy people and billionaires. So I think if you want somebody who will take to the White House what I've done for my whole life.
Thank you, Senator Sanders.
I don't even know if I'll be able to vote this Tuesday because schools will be closed in Illinois for the rest of March, where I vote as a
Let's
school.
talk about the future, Vice President Biden. If you become the Democratic presidential nominee, how will you appeal to supporters of Senator Sanders when you do disagree on so many issues?
He's making it hard for me right now. I was trying to give him credit for some things. He won't even take the credit for things he wants to do. Look, I think that I want to make it clear. If Bernie's a nominee, I will not only support him, I will campaign for him. And I believe the people who support me will do the same thing. Because the existential threat to the United States of America is Donald Trump. It's critical. I would hope that Bernie would do the same thing.
See, this is what I talked about in the video. Make Donald Trump the number one issue, not health care.
Yep.
Because it's
40 to 60,000 Americans are not dying every year because of Donald Trump. Newsflash, they were dying before Trump came into office. See? You see the political game that's being played here? And unfortunately, Bernie went along with that stupid bullshit narrative, so there's no way now that he can flip priorities. Beating Trump is the number one thing. Sorry.
That's what they did.
Biden wins, I'm not voting for him. I'm out. Sorry.
But we don't disagree on the principle. We fundamentally disagree with this president on everything. This is a man who wants to cut Social Security, cut Medicare, not Bernie, the president of the United States. So this is much bigger than
where you going, babe?
I'm the nominee or Bernie's the nominee.
Won't take me long.
We must defeat Donald Trump. He is the exit. 4 more years of Donald Trump will fundamentally change the nature of who we are as a nation. We've got to restore.
Perkinos, I don't really see much different between Trump's healthcare plan and Biden's healthcare plan. Biden is basically a warmed over Obamacare. And does anybody believe that he's actually going to expand Obamacare to include the 28 million people that got left behind? You believe that?
Day one, when I announced my candidacy, what I said is this country cannot.
I agree. Graham, he did. He added jobs. You have to give him that.
Who was a pathological liar, who was running a corrupt administration.
What's up, Cassia? Good to see you, sis.
The Constitution of the United States that believes is above the law, was a racist and a sexist and a homophobe. He is the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. What I said on day one. that obviously I hope to win the nomination. But if I don't win the nomination, and I think every other Democratic candidate is prepared to come together to do everything humanly possible to defeat Donald Trump. But let me respond to something that Joe said. You know, we talked about the Green New Deal and all of these things in general terms, but details make a difference. What I have said throughout this campaign, and I don't think I've heard you say this yet, Joe.
Most dangerous.
If we are going
That's
to
bullshit,
if we're
Bernie.
going to save this planet for our kids.
Donald Trump is not the most dangerous president we've ever had. He's more dangerous than Bush, who led us into a war on false pretenses.
That they're short-term problems.
He's more dangerous than Obama, who killed more civilians in Afghanistan in 4 years than Bush did in 8. What are you talking about?
We're going to get into the Green New Deal.
Okay.
We're going to talk about climate change. We have to squeeze in a quick break. When we come back, the CNN Univision Democratic presidential debate.
Unbelievable.
Stay with us.
Unbelievable.
Was Nixon
Don't.
dangerous?
Well, Nixon did the whole Watergate thing of spying on people. Like, if you look at Clinton, you weren't around at the time, but if you look at Bill Clinton, yeah, you get Bill Clinton's policies and such, and Trump's, they're almost pretty much the same, except Trump is nicer to black people. That's it. The same guy.
Isn't Bill Clinton horrible?
Unbelievable, huh?
Isn't Bill Clinton horrible? Why they get impeached?
I'll explain to you why Bill Clinton got impeached later on. Unbelievable. What's up, Tejas?
Spam in a taco.
That's disgusting.
Pork for four. Sizzled pork and after transforming to meet the challenges of a digital world.
I mean, that's fine, James. But there were a lot of contrary voices saying that we should not have went into Iraq. And he brought us into Iraq. He's got to own that. Sorry. To say that Donald Trump is the most dangerous president we've ever had is absolute. It's the stupidest thing. I don't even know why. And it's almost exclusively him saying it. I don't hear anybody else saying that Donald Trump is the most dangerous president we've ever had. This is just nonsense. It's nonsense. Bill got impeached because he lied under oath.
Is Trump a liar?
They're all liars, bro. Didn't you just see what see, this is the thing that kills me about Bernie, is that he calls Trump a liar. He calls Trump a pathological liar. He has no problem calling Trump a pathological liar. And then Biden says a straight up lie. He lied. It was a straight up lie. And instead of saying, you're a liar, you are lying to the American people, he's saying, are you sure? I'm going to give you another chance. Like, no. If you're, call him a liar. He's a liar. It's a fact. Unbelievable. The ACA expanded coverage to millions of people. Yeah, again, we left out the fact that it didn't cover 28 million people. 28 million people. Why should you not believe Biden? Because Biden just lied 10 minutes ago, Perkinos, when he was asked whether or not he talked about cutting Social Security. And I've given you 2 links where he did that on multiple occasions. And Bernie asked him about it 3 different times in 3 different ways. And each time he lied and said he never said that. That's why. You can't trust him. That and the fact that he said he got arrested with Nelson Mandela. That was also a lie. That was a lie. That's why you can't trust Biden. Good night. What do you mean, why can't I trust Biden?
He actually said...
Yeah, he said he got arrested with Nelson Mandela. You know why? Because he has no respect for black people. And he believes that black people are that stupid that, oh, shit, you got arrested with Nelson Mandela. You're one of us. Let's ignore the crime bill and all that other shit. Unbelievable. Is he lying or does he not remember? Okay, fine. If he doesn't remember, then you still can't trust him. Good night. And now look, here's this simp, Sid. Why are you cucking for Trump, Vin? He's proven to lie more than any other president 3 years alone. Sid, just because somebody disagrees with Biden doesn't mean that they're cucking for Trump. There might be a third option. God almighty. I did not vote for Trump, and I will not vote for Trump. It's obvious I'm going to have to sit this one out. But this silly idea that Trump is the worst president we've ever had or the most dangerous is ridiculous. And if that means I'm cucking for him because I'm not going along with the silly talking points from a half senile individual, God forgive me, then call it what you will. Oh, my goodness. The reason that I don't like this conversation about Trump being the most dangerous president we've ever had is because Bernie cannot bring himself to call a liar when he's staring one in the face. And if you make Trump the number one priority in this election, then you subsume human beings under that, like Medicare for all issues or student loan debt, et cetera, et cetera. Those become subordinate agendas to the main agenda, which is to beat Trump. That's why I don't like that narrative. Good night.
That's like Trump.
Women are the canaries in the coal mine of the conservative agenda. Our access to health care is at risk from the Federalist Society's remaking of the courts. Our lives are threatened by abusive partners' access to guns. Women are disproportionately affected by bail requirements, Social Security cuts, and cuts to public education.
Correct, James Marshall. The Mandela thing is a new hot sauce in Clinton's purse. This is white Democrats spitting in your face, slapping you in the face, telling you they have no respect for you, and that they have not progressed mentally to thinking that black people are not their children. That's what that was.
No. I can't
And
finish
in
that.
terms of policies, unlike Joe, I have consistently believed, and I have a 100% lifetime voting record from groups like NARAL, that it is a woman's right to control her own body.
Oh boy.
Again, this is the kill baby stuff. But again, both of these guys are going to agree.
They're
on
in the
this.
same spot, yeah.
Yeah.
Domestic violence in this country. I have aggressively and I think effectively made the case that we cannot have women in America earning 80 cents on the dollar.
I don't care, Sid.
compared to men, and if
What you're talking about is he could do something.
on the dollar.
We've seen what he's going to do in 4 years. He's going to bully other countries. He's going to mess with the Chinese and get into a pissing contest with the Chinese. He's going to try to build a wall. He's not gonna press some nuclear button. He actually showed amazing restraint against the Iranians when they shot down our drone. So do what you want with that.
And fighting for the rights of women who today are under incredible political assault by Trump and Republican governors.
7 Burns, I will tell you.
Why is he saying that?
Number one,
That women are
I
under
agree
political
with,
assault by Trump.
Women are in political assault by Trump because, again, this is just another talking point. What has Trump actually done to women?
That's what I'm saying.
Nothing. But here's Bernie, just the orange man bad stuff. Ridiculous.
I'll appoint the first black woman to the courts. It's required that they have representation now. It's long overdue.
He'll appoint the first black woman. Is that Mandela? Mandela's daughter, maybe.
Administration will look like the country.
See all this pandering to black people. And he really believes that if he puts a black woman up there, that's going to make us feel good. The sad fact of the matter is, there's millions of black people that are like, oh, that's right, go ahead.
Domestic violence law, and I'm the guy that put in the prohibitions that no one who abuses someone else should be able to own a gun. Period. They should not be able to own a gun. I would get the boyfriend exception amended. Now I've gotten it passed that if you get a stay away order from a court, you have a child with someone, you cannot own a gun. No one should be able to own a gun.
If you have kids?
What?
Oh, that's abused a woman.
Vice President.
Okay.
Let's follow up.
He's going to appoint Harriet Tubman to run the railroads. Comment of the night!
Senator Sanders, will you
May I just respond and ask Joe a question? Right now, a woman's right to control her own body is under massive assault, unprecedented assault.
It is.
Joe, you have in the past,
I love how they worded
on
it as
more than
assault.
one occasion, voted
Yeah.
for the Hyde Amendment.
It's assault.
which says that
Not killing
a
children
woman
equals
will
assault against women.
not use Medicaid funding for an abortion. Is that still your view, or have you modified it?
It is not my view. It's not my view. And by the way, everybody.
No, Byrne, he didn't really say that about Harriet Tubman, but would you be surprised? Tell the truth.
Other bills. The reason why I affirmatively came out opposed to the Hyde Amendment was that if we're going to have public funding for all health care along the line, there is no way you could allow for there to be a requirement that you have Hyde Amendment. A woman who doesn't have the money could not have coverage under health care.
Well, I'm glad.
Number two, and I've done that. I did that a while ago, okay? Number one. Number two, I would send immediately to the desk of the United States Congress when I'm elected president, if I'm elected president, a codification of Roe v. Wade amended by Casey. Because I think it is a woman's right to choose. I think it's a woman's opportunity to be
Why do you
able to
stop
make that
there?
decision.
It's her
And in
right to
fact,
choose what? To
I've
kill
got
her baby?
100%
Like, I hate
respect
that they
for
stop
So
right there.
100%.
Yes, women should be able
I
to
just
choose,
wanna-
but choose
I just
what?
wanna-
Why are you
Right.
stopping there?
100% voting record from NARAL?
I know my record of late from NARAL has been 100%. I don't know whether it was 25 years ago.
Well, all right. I mean, I think
Biden's
one of
actually
the
in good shape,
differences
though. If you look at his
vote
body, he's actually.
I have been consistent.
He looks like he's in good physical
I've always
health.
believed in that, and you have not. I'm glad you've you.
Senator, just to be clear, the vice president committed to picking a woman as his running mate. If you get the nomination, will you?
In all likelihood, I will. For me, it's not.
Here's
just
Ben Webb's silly argument.
nominating
Let me read Ben Webb's question and then deconstruct it for everybody in the room. Do you believe someone has the right to steal someone's resources, make them sick, break into their house, and live there without asking, etc.? Ben, if the answer, if the person doing that is not related in any way, shape, or form to the person, no. But if the person is that person's child, then yes, the child has the right to be taken care of by the parent. And if the parent were to say, "Get the hell out of my house," to a 2-month-old child, the police would show up at the door and arrest that young woman for child neglect. There's the answer to your question, Ben.
Kellandros, you said because maybe they won't kill their baby, Sori. Choice means choice. It doesn't necessarily mean death. When they're talking about choice, they're absolutely talking about death. Nobody ever goes around saying a woman has the choice to keep her baby or to adopt it out. The reason that we're saying choice is they're saying she has the choice to let that baby reside in her or kill it.
Furthermore, it's called a euphemism. It's called a euphemism, Kellandros. The term woman's right to choose is a simple dog whistle to everybody to say, we're talking about abortion. Stop playing games. If you believe in killing kids, just say you believe in killing kids, bruh. Why are you trying to dress it up in other language? It's almost like you feel like it's doing the wrong thing.
In the United States of America.
So to be clear, only felons get deported and everyone else has to stay?
Yes.
Who gets deported?
Yes.
Only felons.
Okay, that's pretty decent.
That's basically an open border policy.
No, because if you deport felons, there's been so much arrests of black people just because they're black. Then how can you say that's not happening to immigrants?
2007 immigration bill. That bill was opposed by LULAC, the largest.
There's lots of black people that are in jail right now, and they haven't really done anything. They had
Cassia, that's just a lie.
They
Cassia.
put certain laws in there so they can arrest who they want to arrest. So
Cassia.
they're going to give him a felony and they're going to send him out of here.
Cassia, I love you, but that's a lie. It is not true that late-term abortions only happen under exigent circumstances. In Colorado right now, you can abort a child up to the 9th month for any reason. In New York City, you can abort a child if you have mental...
No questions asked.
Correct. In New York, you can abort a child up to the 9th month if you have mental health issues. Please stop telling people that. That's untrue. Now, I know you're not lying on purpose, but you should get educated on the topic.
Especially when it's such a major topic.
That's false.
We end these ICE raids, which are terrorizing communities all over this country. 3, we change the border policy under my administration.
Furthermore, in my state, you can murder a child in the 4th month of gestation. And everybody go to Google and type 4th month of gestation and see what that kid looks like. It looks like a baby. That's why the Mayo Clinic said D&E abortions are the 2nd most popular forms of abortion in the United States of America.
The border
is open.
Please miss me with the misinformation. Look, I love y'all. If y'all are going to support this action, man, look it in the face, call it what it is, stop dressing it up, stop lying about it, and tell us exactly what you believe. Because Ben Webb does it. Ben Webb says, yeah, man, kill those babies. So do it. Do what Ben does. Don't do the euphemisms and dress it up and throw smoke in the air. Just look it right in the face.
The baby gets its own heartbeat at what, like
6 weeks.
6 weeks. But basically, by the time you find out you're pregnant, the baby's heart's already beating.
Let me set the record straight, as someone has said. You know, the idea that it was slavery. Barack Obama supported...
The fetus becomes alive at the moment of conception. That's science.
Kennedy supported that immigration bill. I support it. I doubt whether those people think it's slavery. Well, and by the way...
Sid, why would you even say something like that?
He went on the Lou Dobbs show and continued to canard that they're taking jobs...
I don't know if you're joking, but that's a really, really sick joke.
I don't have a problem with him saying that. I would much rather that than the disinformation stuff that goes on in this forum.
You think Ted Kennedy is...
I'd much rather somebody say the baby had it coming than say nobody does late-term abortions other than very, very extreme circumstances. Tell the truth.
Whether or not I would deal with supporting the border. Look, we can deal with securing the border by...
Lori Pooh, I feel the same way.
All the bad things are coming through ports of entry right now. We don't need a wall. And by the way, I would immediately, as president, surge to the border. I would end this notion for the first time in history that people seeking asylum have to be in squalor on the other side of the river and in a desperate situation. They should be able to come to the United States and have a judgment made as whether or not they qualify. I would also surge to the border.
I don't know what you said. I love DeWalt.
Make decisions immediately, and no one would be put in jail while waiting for their hearing.
Senator Sanders?
That's a lie, Arya. That's simply not true. Even the Guttmacher Institute says that you're wrong about that.
At the border.
Here's the thing, Kellendross. When you and I had that discussion, we were both telling the truth. You said some really extreme stuff in our discussion that I will not repeat here because I don't want people to judge you. But we were telling the truth and there was no bullshit. And as long as people tell the truth about what's happening with abortion, then I'm good. One thing that I will share, Kellendross, is you admitted that in abortion we're killing a baby. Okay, fine. If you admit that we're killing babies in abortion, then the discussion's going to go one way. But when you start with the bullshit, throwing shit in the air and lying to people, that's when the discussion goes somewhere else. So stop acting like I'm different one way and different another. Trust me, brother. If you would have got on in our one-on-one discussion and said some of the shit that was happening up here, I would have given you the same type of response.
People together, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Vice President Biden, you opposed sanctuary cities as a presidential candidate in 2007. Where do you stand
Lurch, I
now?
agree.
Should undocumented immigrants arrested by local police be turned over to immigration officials?
Whoa. No. Look at his face.
Of course not. Look, and one of the...
Did you hear that?
What was it?
Should undocumented people who've been arrested by the authorities be or been caught turned over to the authorities?
Why should they be?
He said no. That's basically open borders then. What's the difference between that and open borders?
Why would they say no? Why would they say no?
Because they can't. Because AOC and Bernie have pushed everybody so far to the left. Bernie, Trump is gonna screen cap that. That's gonna be in the. How much you guys want to bet Biden backtracks that?
Again, what the American people want us to do. I'm the son of an immigrant. This is a country significantly built by immigrant labor, built by slave labor. And what we have got to do is appreciate each other and end this demonization and divisiveness.
4 years ago, he was saying the opposite of this, Bernie was.
Really?
Yeah. 4 years ago, he was saying that was a Koch brothers conspiracy. I'll explain the Koch brothers things to you later. Wow.
Of every 100 children in school today, from kindergarten through high school, is a Latino.
It's such a messy
right
topic
now,
because
today.
I say yes, open it, let people come in. But I'm not good with letting people come in that are going to bring like violence.
Sean, Trump is he's gonna crush on that.
And stuff like that. That I'm not good with. So I think there should be something for us to be able to kind of some sort of an idea of what's going on. But
Fournier.
I don't
That's
agree
not
with closing our
debatable.
borders and
It's
not letting
science.
people
Life begins at conception. That's not a debate.
I think that's awful.
Xenophobia is a disease.
If you disagree with that, you're disagreeing with science.
Senator Sanders, the
We're
World
not
Health
overpopulated
Organization calls
here.
the
There's plenty of
climate
places
crisis
you
a
can go to
quote
the state of
health
Missouri.
crisis,
Nobody.
and
For
warns
miles
that
and
climate
miles and
change
miles,
could
like,
fuel the spread
we have
of
plenty of
infectious
space. We can take a lot more
diseases.
people in.
Can you point to specific measures in your climate plan that address that threat?
Well, of course we do. I mean, we look, this is what the scientists are telling us, the same scientists who make
Open borders during a pandemic is not a winning platform. I agree. You're right.
No.
You're right.
True.
There will be
You're right.
irreversible damage done to this planet. We're talking about cities in America, from Miami to New Orleans to Charleston, South Carolina, being underwater.
Bob, we are pro-life, so the arithmetic is always to save human life. So if we're in a situation where the child and the mother could die, then we should take every action possible to save as many lives as possible.
Just a few months ago.
That is not what is happening. That is not what happened with 99.99% of the 60 million abortions we've committed since 1978 in this
This is not a
country.
middle of the ground thing. This is not building a few more solar panels or a few more wind turbines. What this is about is transforming our energy system as quickly as we humanly can away from fossil fuel.
That's right, Justin. That is correct.
In America, it is absurd that we give tens of billions of dollars a year in tax breaks and subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. This has got to end, and end now, if we love our kids and future generations.
Vice President Biden?
First thing that President Obama and I were summoned to the State Department, the Defense Department for, was to meet with all the chiefs. The single
Laguna, my parents came here illegally. They now have papers. I was born here, but even we believe if you come here illegally, that's breaking the law, and if you get caught, you should be deported. Yikes! I hear you. I hear you. I'm an immigrant too.
With the change in weather patterns and the desert there, it causes war.
I hear you.
Great migrations. They said that's the single biggest problem. Number two,
this is an extremist. What Biden and Bernie just said about the border is an extremist position. That's an extremist position. As I said, if you look at what Clinton and Obama were doing, I mean, really has the country moved? All 320 million of us have moved that quickly in 4 years? That's such a ridiculous political move to make. I'm sorry. Open borders. That's crazy. Trump's going to eat them alive on that.
Mm-hmm. That's about $14 trillion.
Eat them alive on that.
Senator Sanders wants to spend on this. Is your plan ambitious enough to tackle this crisis?
Yes, it is ambitious enough to tackle the crisis, because when you go to joebiden.com, I lay out the first 13 things I would do immediately upon.
Well, again, Ben, abortion is not an act of self-protection by the numbers. Parents are responsible for their children. Children are not the properties of their parents. Parents are responsible for their children. So the entire argument about the person breaking into the house and all the rest of it is a silly argument.
Making sure that we spend $500 billion a year in the federal government paying for transportation, the vehicles we run. All of those being converted to be able to run on low carbon fuel, and or be able to run on no carbon fuel at all, by having them move into a direction that is all carbon free. We can do these things. We can.
Everyone, please go to Joe 30330 LOL. I mean,
strike that from the record.
Strike it from the record.
Together, I would call the 100 nations.
What Bo should have said is they would hire the immigrant lawyers and judges in contrast to Trump, who won't. Whoa, that's good, Ranter Matt. That's really good. You should shoot a video on that. You should get that clip and then say this is what they should have said. I can't believe nobody on Bernie's team prepped for this question. That's such a brilliant answer. Did you hear what he said?
Oh, yeah.
That's a good answer. Coming out on national TV and saying all that stuff is it's suicidal. It's terrible.
Entire year per year.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Lots of people cringed at that, I'm sure.
Good, but nowhere near enough. I mean, you mentioned we started this debate.
No, Fournier. What we know is that the zygote is a separate organism that directs its own development from the moment of conception. You obviously have not, and like no disrespect to you, brother, but you obviously haven't done the commensurate research to speak on the topic. After this discussion, I will send you a link from an actual embryologist, a credentialed embryologist, multiple embryologists, Hale, Yarvard, Johns Hopkins, and they can explain to you that the moment of conception, that the zygote actually directs its own development and then contrasts it from things like tumors and cells, etc., etc., etc.
And tell them their profits are not more important than healthcare for all. Do we take on the fossil fuel industry? Look, in terms of the fossil fuel industry, these guys have been lying. They've been lying for years, like the tobacco industry lied 50 years ago. Oh, we don't know if fossil fuels, if oil and carbon emissions are causing climate change. They knew.
We were immigrants.
Knew. They lied.
I'm an immigrant. You're not. But our mom was an immigrant.
What Joe was saying,
my older brother's an immigrant.
It's not a question of money. Give me a minute.
My immigration policy isn't based on that, though, because we came in here legally. My immigration policy is based on what I see in the Bible.
We're staying on this issue.
Number one,
Yarvard graduate. Yeah, I'm a Yarvard graduate, Cal.
No ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. Ends.
What?
Number one.
There we go again. The oil industry can't drill?
We cannot.
You're gonna eliminate drilling in the oil industry in America. Are you kidding me, Biden?
To set in motion the fact that he says
hey,
climate change,
listen,
Paris Accord,
who in this forum?
Exactly right.
What's up, Shiv Tile V2?
85% of the problem is over there. We need someone who can deal internationally. We need someone who can bring the world together again. We need someone who can move in a direction that, in fact, if you violate the commitment you make, you will pay an economic price for it, like what's happening in China. They're exporting coal, significant coal.
Thank you. Look, obviously, the Paris Accord is useful, but it doesn't go anywhere. If you laugh at Joe,
right, James? Who wants to lose the most?
This is an existential crisis.
Bingo.
You talk about. I'm talking about stopping fracking as soon as we possibly can. I'm talking about telling the fossil fuel industry that they are going to stop destroying this planet. No ifs, buts, and maybes about it. I'm talking about speaking to China. Well, I'm not sure your proposal does that. I'm talking about.
I'm not sure your proposal does that. Bernie!
And in this moment, making the point that instead of spending $1.8 trillion on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we should pool our resources and fight our common enemy, which is climate change. I know your heart is in the right place.
He's always so trying to be nice.
You know his heart is in the right place. Trump is the most dangerous person on the planet, and Joe Biden's heart's in the right place. Then why the hell should I vote for you, Bernie?
That's what he's saying. What's he going to do? He's going to bring these countries together, make it clear to them. I'm saying we bring them together, make them live up to the commitments. If they don't live up to the commitments, they pay a financial price for it. They pay an economic price for it because we can do everything. My state is 3 feet above sea level. I don't need a lecture on what's going to happen about rising seas. I know what happens. I watched the whole Delmarva Peninsula, just like it is in South Carolina and the rest.
I got to give it to Biden, man. They prepped him. I'm sure he met with CNN beforehand like Hillary did.
Yeah.
I'm the guy
and he's doing really well. Bernie's done. I said it earlier. Matt, I don't see how Bernie recovers from this, man. It's over.
Yeah.
Bernie found this out is amazing to me.
Senator Sanders?
Bernie didn't find it out. Bernie is listening to the scientists. And what, you're talking about making...
James, I don't know if you know this, but AOC turned against Bernie recently. I'll send you the link. It's pretty terrible stuff.
Is that the scientists are telling us they underestimated the severity of the crisis. They were wrong. The problem is more severe. So all that I'm saying right here is that we are fighting for the future of this planet, for the well-being.
I mean, when he went after him, Kel, it was a really good gut punch, but...
I understand Joe believes to continue fracking. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Does the DNC have something on Bernie? They must.
Bring the world together. Tell the fossil fuel industry that we are going to move aggressively to wind, solar, sustainable energies, and energy efficiency.
Thank you, Senator.
No new fracking. And by the way, on the Recovery Act, I was able to make sure we invested.
Be careful,
$90
Kel.
billion.
They'll start saying that you're
brought down the price of
what is it, a
solar
misogynist.
and wind that is lower than the price of coal. That's why not another new coal plant will be built. I did that while you were watching. Number one.
Whoa.
Number two, we're in a situation where
What
I did that while you were watching.
down
Yikes.
the tracks where no one can change the dynamic. And that's why we should be talking about things like I've been talking about for years. High-speed rail.
No, AOC would never let this happen. Neither would Tulsi. That's the thing, is that as far as the far left goes, or progressives goes, the girls are much, much more gangster. They have a lot more gangster in them than the dudes. You saw what happened when Hillary tried that red baiting bullshit with Tulsi. You saw what Tulsi did to her.
Which is a method of extracting natural gas. The shift towards natural gas and away from coal has resulted.
I want to date Sori.
Emissions. So how can the U.S.
Is that when we
transition to
some boy?
targeted goal
Huh?
of zero emissions with fracking completely out of the picture?
Because we have to invest in an unprecedented way. In an unprecedented way. You started off by saying that we're talking about a $13-14 trillion investment. That is a lot of money. And I've been criticized for that. But I don't know what the alternative is if we are playing for the future of this planet. So we got to be dramatic. And what being dramatic is massive investments.
Why are you doing that, bro?
In solar, in sustainable energies in general, and research and development, in making our buildings all over this country. My state.
Checks in the mail, Sean.
This country got a lot of old buildings. We can put millions and millions of people to work, making our buildings energy efficient. Moving our transportation system to electricity. So what we're talking about is a massive, unprecedented investment. That is what the Green New Deal
Right on,
is
Cassia.
about. I support
We'll
it.
double up if we can ever find a way to be in the same city together.
Thank you so much, Senator Sanders. We're going to be back with more from the CNN.
It's
Division
done.
Democratic presidential debate.
Give it to Biden. Give it to Biden. His handlers prepped him. I'm sure CNN.
Give it to Biden. Give it to Biden, but Trump's going to win in the end.
I'm sure CNN prepped him. They must have been over at his house doing these questions over and over and over again.
And then it's like when you hire a lawyer and then the lawyer basically says, "Listen, I'm going to phrase the question this way for you, but then I'm going to make it that way for the other person to make it difficult for them." And that's exactly what they were doing here.
Yeah, it's just like the prep for the deposition. When you go for a deposition, you have this panel of lawyers that you have to deal with, and then you have your team, and they like give you a little breakdown, yada yada yada, and then then they have little phrases that you can say if you don't want to answer. Yeah, that's exactly what they did for Biden, 100%. 100%.
This guy Biden said a zillion quadrillion.
A zillion quadrillion. Oh, Biden will get destroyed by Trump.
I really wish. I hope Biden wins. I hope he beats Trump just so I can listen to him talk for the next years.
Oh my gosh,
Biden.
You're so funny. I do not want to hear Biden talk for years.
He's so funny.
No, Trump is way more funny. Are you serious?
Yeah.
You guys are insane.
Trump
we got
Biden is
coronavirus.
naturally
We got the
Trump is
impending.
intelligently funny.
Well, Trump is always like the way
Right.
that he words things is so funny.
Like mini Mike.
Or he'll like he's always like complimenting himself, like talking. What is it?
I started watching The Apprentice on Tubi. Man, he's funny. Trump is funny.
I like it when he speaks positively about himself. What is it? What do you?
There's some. I just got a news flash about coronavirus, so I'm checking it.
Mm.
Trump is not a gooder talker. No, man. No. Biden, Trump is going to say, "You're a liar. You're a liar." I mean, think about it. When he does that whole cutting, first of all, Trump talked about cutting entitlements on that last, town hall he did. So Biden can't weaponize that because all Trump has to do is say, "We saw you lying to Bernie." And then he's going to just play the clip. He'll probably have the clip on his cell phone and play it right there in the debate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to go this way. But I don't know what Bernie doesn't want it, man. Bernie just doesn't want it. He doesn't. I've come to the conclusion.
He's 78 years old.
He doesn't. He's 78 years. He's tired.
Why would he be running?
He doesn't want it.
If he didn't want it.
Because he likes to hear himself talk, and he likes everybody coming around. And he likes it. I mean, if he really wanted it, he wouldn't be saying things like, "Well, I'm not sure if your plan is as good as mine." And he's saying he's kid gloving this guy. And it's 11:59. Like, this debate was, he had to force him into making some horrible gaffe, a meltdown on stage, something. Like, that was his only hope. Mm-hmm. And he's sitting there kid gloving this guy when he told us all a bull-faced lie. All of us have seen it. I'm looking at it right now. Entitlement programs 12 years ago, where Biden was talking about cutting Social Security. He lied multiple times. Wow. And Bernie refused to call the guy a liar. Trump's not even there, and he's saying all this craziness about Trump. It's unbelievable. Like, maybe he's that naive, and he just thinks people will, I don't know.
Doreen, go get Orion so I can hold him for just a couple minutes before he goes to bed.
Unbelievable.
If he needs a bottle, have the girls bring a bottle.
Biden would just talk about corn pop and people rubbing his leg here. Yeah. Here's change things up. Biden v. Sanders in a Hell in a Cell cage match for the nom. Bernie's health might be worse, but Biden will probably end up just hitting himself. It's stuck for a while.
Arizona, Ohio, Illinois, and Florida will cast their votes in the Democratic primary. Here's Univision's Ilya Calderon.
Thank you, Jake. Let's move
Don't hit the camera.
Sanders. There are about 1.5 million Cuban Americans living in Florida right now. Why would they vote for you when they hear you praise a program of Fidel Castro, a dictator?
Oh my God! Here we go with the Castro thing again.
Thousands of Cubans.
I have opposed authoritarianism, whether it's in Cuba, whether it's in Saudi Arabia, whether it's in China, or whether
They're bringing up the Castro thing again.
That is my life record. I believe, unlike the President of the United States, in democracy, not authoritarianism in Cuba or any place else. What I believe right now in this world is that we are.
Why are they bringing up Castro again?
And a movement toward
exactly, Kel.
That's what
exactly. Why are we talking about Castro?
That's what MBS in Saudi Arabia.
You shouldn't. You know what you should have said? Bernie should have said, "I already addressed this in the other one. Let's go to the next question."
Put the flag down and say that in this country and in this world, we have got to move toward democracy and human rights. That is my view and has always been my view.
To be clear, Senator Sanders, Cuba has been a dictatorship for decades. Shouldn't we judge dictators by the violation of human rights and not by any of their alleged achievements?
Well, I think you can make the same point about China. China is undoubtedly an authoritarian society. Okay? But would anybody deny, any economists deny, that extreme poverty...
I don't know much about MMT. I'm very intrigued by it, especially after watching the last Jimmy Dore show, and Ben Webb was the first one to really bring it into my consciousness.
Russia, Cuba, any place else. But to simply say that nothing ever done by any of those administrations had a positive impact on their people.
Let him play with something else. Get his nookie. Get his
Vice
nookie.
President Biden, you have criticized
Get his nookie.
Senator Sanders for praising Castro's education system. But in 2016, President Obama said Cuba made, quote, a great progress in educating young people.
I don't think Ben Webb is really a moron.
System is a huge achievement that they should be congratulated for. How is that different from what Senator Sanders has said?
He was trying to change Cuban policy so the Cuban people would get out from under the thumb of the Castro and his brother. That is to change the policy so that we could impact on Cuba's policy by getting them opened up. That was about. But the praising of the Sandinistas, the praising of Cuba, the praising just now of China. China is an authoritarian dictatorship. That's what it is.
He didn't just praise China. What are you talking about?
In fact, have increased
oh my
wealth
goodness
of people in that country. It's been marginal, the change that's taken place. It is still, they have 1 million Uyghurs, 1 million Muslims in prison camps in the West. You see what's happening
That always
in Hong
sounds like
Kong
it's a bad
today.
word.
And by the
It's
way,
just the
idea
Muslims
that
in
he praised the
China.
Soviet
I know,
Union
but whenever he says it, I'm always like,
about the things that they had done well.
Are you serious?
They're
Nobody
a
knows. I
lawful
just bought
dictatorship killing
3 at
millions and
Walmart
millions of
yesterday.
people. And in addition to
I
that,
risked
we have
my
a
life.
circumstance
I told
where
somebody to put
And
those
my
in my
immune
room.
system.
No, literally tell all those kids
Get
stop doing
Zoe.
everything.
Somebody's
They need
gotta
to find
get-
those pacifiers.
by the Russians now.
We've got like 9 of them.
Elections.
Like,
This
get
man
Zoe
is
something.
against sanctioning Russia for interference in our elections. I don't get it.
Well, what you don't get, and this is exactly what the problem with politics is about. All right, question. Did
Okay,
China
open.
make progress in ending extreme poverty over the last 50 years?
Where's his
That's
nookie,
That's
sweetheart?
like saying Jack the Ripper.
No, it's not.
Yes,
You see,
it is.
this is the
Yes,
problem.
it is.
This is the
Bernie,
We can't talk.
get
I don't
out
know
of
if
this.
it's
There's
right.
no
I know
way
it's
you're gonna
China's
win this.
awful.
Get
Russia
out of
never
this.
Good. Russia, no. But the fact of the
Blah, blah,
matter
blah.
is, China, of course, is an
This is
authoritarian site.
this is
That's what I just
terrible.
said.
It's a dictatorship.
That's what I just said 5 minutes ago, you know? And by the way, you know, the question
is a-
that was asked
this-
floated
this
for
is a-
Obama. President Obama
This is
was
quicksand.
warned
This is a
in his
trap,
praise
and he fell right
of
into it.
What Cuba did in healthcare and education.
Why does he not have the
And I was
understanding when
talking
he's
about a
being
program
trapped?
60 years ago in the first year.
This is a trap. He should just ignore this
So
question.
the bottom line is that I think it's a little bit absurd. If you're going to look at
He
the
brings
world
up exactly, Ryu. He brings up Jack the freaking Ripper. Seriously?
What? What did I miss?
Seriously, Jack the
Wait,
Ripper?
what did I miss?
considered good policy, good idea. I was condemning the dictatorship in Saudi Arabia when a lot of other people in Washington went me. I was condemning the
What's
dictatorship
Biden
in the UAE. You were not.
Thank you, Senator
Yes, I
Sanders.
was.
Vice President Biden.
Look, the idea of occasionally saying something nice about a country is one thing. The idea of praising a country that is violating human rights around the world is, in fact, makes our allies wonder what's going on. What do you think the South Koreans think when he praises China like that? What do you think? What do you think the Australians believe?
Oh
in
my
the shadow
God.
of
Use
China?
that rage,
Yo,
Bernie.
yo.
Use the
Biden-
rage.
Biden is.
In the
This
shadow
is
of
the
China.
best I've ever
What do you
seen
think is
Biden.
happening in terms of Japan in the shadow of China? Words
wonder how he's-
matter.
Because
These are
that
flat out dictators.
this is
Period.
this is
It's been
freestyling
called
right
for.
now because he's
Straight up.
bringing up what
We may
this
have
is
to work
not
out.
the
For
pre.
example, I was able
Wow.
to help negotiate a new START agreement with Russia. Not because I like Putin. The guy's a thug.
Mr. Vice President,
Dog.
sticking with foreign policy,
Look at
you
his
acknowledge that your support
You can
and vote
tell
for the
Bernie's
Iraq
mad.
war was a mistake.
He used to use
What
that.
lessons did you learn from that mistake, and how might those lessons influence your foreign policy decision-making as president?
I learned I can't take the word of a president when, in fact, they assured me that he would not use force. Remember the context. The context was the United Nations Security Council was going to vote to insist that we allow inspectors in to determine whether or not they were, in fact, producing nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction. They were not. And what's the first thing that
Now
happened?
they're
when we got
giving
elected?
him the
President
ability
Obama turned to me and
to
said, "Get those
whitewash
troops out of
his
there." I was
record
responsible
on
for
the
getting
Iraq War.
50,000 combat
Now,
troops out of
let's
Iraq.
see if they do
I
a
was-
follow-up
I
question
waited
that says
14
2
years
years
ago to
after the
get
invasion,
And
when
I'm
we
prepared
dropped
to
a
compare
whole
my
bunch of
foreign
Iraqi
policy
bodies on the
against
ground,
his-
many of
up
which were
against my
civilians,
friend.
where he
Every
got up
day
and
of the week,
rebuked
every
other
day,
Democrats,
so I
including
opened
Bernie,
the
for
door. I
not
compared
voting
to
for
the
going
rest.
to war with Iraq. Let's see if they'll follow up that question.
Right,
Let's
right.
be clear about what that vote was. And you were there at the signing ceremony with Bush. Everybody in the world knew that when you voted for that resolution, you were giving Bush the authority
Correct.
go
To use
war.
force.
Everybody knew
Correct.
That's exactly what he and
Correct.
Cheney wanted to do. Most people who followed that issue closely
Also, Chu
understood
Shagath, that was
that
the most
Bush
kindest,
administration
kid
was lying
gloviest way
through
to
its
ask that
teeth
question.
with regard to Saddam having weapons of mass destruction. I understood that. I was on the floor of the House time and time again. But the issue is not just the war in Iraq. That was a long time ago. The issue is the trade agreement. Wasn't so easy for me.
Bernie's
to lead
just going to let that go too.
trade
He's not going to bring up what he did 2 years later
The
either.
bill that you supported. The issue was
He let him off the hook.
Why does he
Amendment.
do
The
that?
issue is the Defense of Marriage Act.
Does he not think
The
of it, or do you
issue
think he's
is
just too
whether
nice?
or
Or
not in difficult times, and God knows these are difficult times, we're going to have the courage to take on powerful special interests and do what's right for
Vice
the
President Biden.
working families of this country.
Why did you vote not to sanction?
I tell you,
Thank you, Cassie.
you know why? Because that had everything you keep talking about Iran. That was tied to Iran. Russia was in Iran. I think John Kerry indicated his support for what I did. That was undermining the Iranian agreement. That's why.
Not true.
That's why, and that's the only reason why. I have condemned Russia time and time.
Completely let him off the hook with Iraq.
The idea that I, in fact, supported the things that he suggested is not accurate. Look, I'm the guy that helped put together the Iran deal and got the inspectors in there. That was my chief of staff was the guy, my foreign policy guy.
So he basically said, I voted for the invasion. I didn't know Bush was going to go and authorize force and kill all those brown people. I didn't know that.
And in Syria.
2 years into the invasion, he was rebuking his fellow Democrats for not voting for it. And by that time, we'd killed a whole bunch of people.
The fact is, this Bernie's notion about how he embraces.
But when I see Bernie in these situations, I second guess that picture of him back in the civil rights movement. I'm like, was he just walking by and he just happened to get grabbed? And so it looks like he was involved.
I have led the effort against all forms of authoritarianism, including America's so-called allies in the UAE.
So look what happened. Do you see what just happened? We went to Biden's record on Iraq. Bernie lets him off the hook, and once again, Bernie's defending himself from supposedly defending autocrats. Did you see that?
Saudi Arabia. That's what I did.
He's defending himself again against the criticism of 20 minutes ago.
Authoritarianism. The United States has got to be the leader where people all over the world look to us.
Thank you, Senator.
For guidance.
Thank you, gentlemen. I want to change topics and ask each of you about some of your vulnerabilities.
This is some masterful shit, I gotta tell you.
Vice President Biden. Senator Sanders has won more of the Hispanic vote than you in several key states so far. In fact, he doubled your support in California among Hispanics. He almost tripled it in Nevada. So why is your message not resonating with Hispanic voters?
Well, look, my message is resonating across the board. Every single state we've been in, there's been a significant turnout. In Virginia, turnout was up 70%.
What do you mean by the agency backed ISIS to death? What are you talking about?
And number two, look what's happened in Mississippi.
Kel,
look what's happened in North
you got to be
Carolina.
pissed at Bernie.
In Washington State.
It's Bernie's fault.
Across the board. Why is it that I'm winning all those places? What's the reason? What's the reason? The reason is because they know I am a Democrat with a capital D who in fact believes that our base is the base of the Democratic Party, which are hardworking men and women who in fact are high school educated.
How is it that we laymen watching politics back in the day knew what Bush was wanting to do for 2 years, and politicians were mystified that he would pull an invasion? Right, Matt. Right.
Overwhelmingly winning. Not even
because he's saying, I had no idea Bush was going to go in there and kill those people.
Senator Sanders, let me just follow up with you about an issue that you're having.
Bernie's finished.
Consecutive presidential election, you're struggling to gain wide support from African Americans. Why is your message?
Because the black voting bloc is the silliest voting bloc in the electorate. Those are facts. This entire, do you guys realize this? I'm probably going to shoot a video about this.
I think it's
the entire freaking election hinged on one human being, James Clyburn. That's it. Your fault, because your name is also James. James Clyburn turned this entire thing around. And then another black guy, Barack Hussein Obama. You guys know he was on the phone with Mayor Pete and what's her face from Minnesota. 2 black folks are responsible for the situation we're all in now. True story.
Because we are winning the generational struggle. Depending on the state, we're winning people 50 years of age or younger. People 30 years of age and younger.
He's working in Trump's administration.
If I lose this thing, Joe wins, Joe, I will be there for you. But I have my doubts about how you win a general election against Trump. Will be a very, very tough opponent unless you have energy, excitement, the largest voter turnout in history. And to do that, you are going to have to bring young people who are not great voters. They don't vote in the kinds of numbers they should into the political process. You're going to have to bring Latinos.
You're true. James Marshall, James Green. Everybody named James is responsible for this shit.
I have my doubts.
Don't blame James.
That Vice President Biden's campaign can generate that energy and excitement and that voter turnout.
I will do that. And by the way, just get this straight.
Bernie talking
so
about
terrible.
energy.
So far.
Right. He's
And
got no
then for
energy
me,
today. None.
70% turnout increase in Virginia. I can go down the list. They are coming out for me, and I didn't even have the money to compete with this man in those states. I virtually had no money. The press kept saying Biden has no money.
Yeah.
They were right. Biden had no money.
He had a bunch of endorsements
The idea,
from very
why are
influential
they doing
people.
that?
You know, he didn't even set
The
up
reason
shop in
they're doing that is
Minnesota.
because they understand
He didn't have
they
one
have to
office in
happen. I
Minnesota.
know what needs
And
to
Amy
be
stood
done.
up there,
By
and
the
then
way,
boom, there it was.
The idea that
Allahu
everybody
Akbar.
supports Medicare for all.
Look at
he's
him.
not indicating how much it's
Hello,
going to cost
evil
people.
Who said that?
Exactly what's going to. So here's my point. People don't know the details.
Hello, evil baby.
And the fact is, I am
I like these people.
overwhelmingly
They're making me feel
among
good in
Democratic constituencies
very
across
bad
the board.
situation.
Thank you, Mr. Vice
I'm all
President.
hot,
We're going to
shit.
be right
I'm
back
hungry.
with more from the CNN Univision
more?
Democratic presidential debate. Stay right there.
No.
Deep eyes.
Oh my gosh.
Yo, so that's
So
your,
last
that's your new thing,
Thursday
man.
started
People
out
wear
like
too much
any
makeup.
normal day.
He's always been
Julie
like
left
that.
Not a
work,
fan
so
of
Cooper
too
and I
much
were hanging
makeup.
out,
He's always been
chilling,
like that.
barking at squirrels.
Okay, who's
I
this
remember
James
years
talking
ago.
about?
Who?
James guy.
Said it in
James,
Bible
That
study.
starts tickling me.
James Marsh says it.
James,
Yeah.
Whoops.
But Julie came home and used Resolve Pet Expert.
It's
Wasn't
like
it Comey
formula
too?
attached
Jim
to the
Comey?
source.
I don't edit
Yeah,
people
that's
out.
all. He's
Stain,
like,
no nothing.
Yeah, so it was no
completely
big
out.
So I'm
deal.
asking you.
And I was like, wow, that's weird.
Whatever happens,
James
no big deal.
Clyburn, he
Resolved.
gave Biden a endorsement
Tried to
in
not want to make
South
it.
Carolina.
Wear the fake eyeliner.
Is that like a
I
black
wanted
cup
to.
little thing?
South Car- yeah, a bunch of black people.
It was fun.
And we
I saw
all.
this video.
Yeah.
This lady was like on a boat ride.
He said, "Bro, I'm gonna
She didn't close her eyes.
I mean, if Bernie is not on the ticket, I don't see any reason to vote. To be honest,
That's so funny.
why don't you like
Oh,
Trump?
no.
I'm not. I can never bring myself to vote for Trump.
Why?
Well, first of all, his lack of a healthcare plan. There's no healthcare plan
Oh,
with Trump. Even in his last State of the
Can
Union.
you pass?
No mention of the 28 million people uninsured. No mention of the 40 to 60,000 people who are dying every year. All he says is, I've gotten the pharmaceutical companies to make some prices lower. Well, that's great. I can never bring myself to vote for Trump.
Pass
But
this
I'm not.
fudgy-cudge.
I'm not doing the blue no matter who thing. I'm not doing that. What do you mean? You're passing the fudgy cudge?
Yeah, he's gonna, because he keeps getting.
Say
Look at his
goodbye.
pants are on backwards.
Remember crisscross? You remember that?
Yeah.
Crisscross and big
I missed the
Chill,
bus.
chill.
Big.
Oh.
I missed the bus.
James Hetfield is not to blame. Do you think there's any chance that Biden picks up Bernie to try to bring in those young voters? Hell no. Hell no. Because the only reason that Biden is there is to make sure that Bernie is stopped. That's why Obama made all those calls. And Biden
He was done.
Biden is a very legitimate risk to not even finish out his whole term. So there's no way that the DNC would put Bernie in a situation where he could possibly be the president of the United States. Secondly, let's say Biden does finish out his term. It's very possible that he can't do two. Like, he wouldn't even commit to doing 2 terms, which would mean that you would put Bernie in a prominent position to be the president in 4 years. Like, there's no way the DNC would allow that. No way. It'd never happen.
He started calling him types evil baby. Just bring him to the girls.
Bring him to the girls. Salam alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Where's the
Have
pacifier?
you ever heard one of Oprah's speeches?
He doesn't like it. Take him down.
Take him down. He doesn't like being that high up.
Well, he usually does, but I think he's
where's his
not
milk?
interested right now. Honey, did the pacifier go?
Sonia's in the house. Just returned from the grocery store. Game over. Game over.
You don't see any pacifier, don't you?
Zonia, Biden, Trump.
Yes.
Here. Bernie had a good. I don't know if you saw it when they were going back and forth about the what do you call it? His lying ass about what, Social Security, cutting Social Security.
Yeah.
Bernie gut punched him a couple times, but he wouldn't go with the knockout punch. And then after that, I'd have to say that Biden's pretty much dominating the night, to be honest with you. For Biden standard, it looks to me like the man's dominating the night.
Look, WeBD, we got a little further. We got your shirt signed. We just have to get it shipped.
Oh, is Weezy here? Yeah, so your shirt's here,
Oh,
my
I said
guy.
Weeby D. I thought it was Weeby. It's Wheezy.
It's Wheezy.
Yeah.
So the shirt's here. It's signed.
Yep.
This is like old school, and we got
Yep.
something else in the package for you. So Monday, it's getting sent to you, my guy. Sorry for the delay.
But you're working with some procrastinators or busy people, I guess.
Spray some cologne on
Um, Z, one of the things I want us to think about is
That's actually a
something
cool
we
idea.
can do for folks in trouble in your area. We got to think that through.
Not reaction videos.
Biden's
Here
nomination
comes-
over Bernie is still a loss against Trump. Oh, I know that.
Debate. Finally, gentlemen, thanks so much for everything. As we end here tonight, let's return to where we began, the coronavirus, which does not discriminate based on ideology. It does not care if one is a Democrat or a Republican, a conservative, a moderate, or a progressive. Senator Sanders, let me start with you. What's your closing message tonight for those who are concerned about, affected by, or dealing with the coronavirus?
Well, our hearts go out to everyone. We need to move aggressively to make sure that every person in this country who has the virus, who thinks they have the virus, understands they get all the health care that they need because they are Americans, that we move aggressively to make sure that the test kits are out there, that the ventilators are out there, that the ICU units are out there, that the medical personnel are out there. But Jake, if I might also say that in this moment of economic
Kamala.
uncertainty, in addition
Marshall.
to the
Kamala.
coronavirus, it is time to ask how we get to where we are. Not only our lack of preparation for the virus, but how we end up with an economy where so many of our people are hurting at a time of massive income and wealth inequality. It is time to ask the question of where the power is in America. Who owns the media? Who owns the economy? Who owns the legislative process? Why do we give tax breaks to billionaires and not raise the minimum wage? Why do we pump up the oil industry while 500,000 people are homeless in America? This is a time to move aggressively, dealing with the coronavirus crisis, to deal with the economic fallout, but it is also a time to rethink America and create a country where we care about each other rather than a nation of greed and corruption, which is what is taking place among the corporate elite.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Vice President Biden, what's your closing message tonight for those concerned about, affected by, or dealing with this virus?
Number one, as I said at the outset, I just can't imagine what people are going through right now who have lost someone already. I can't imagine what people are going through when they have a mom. Like, for example, a good friend of ours is sitting outside the window of a nursing home where her mom is because she can't go in, trying to do sign language to her mom and through the window to be able to talk to her.
That's sad.
I can't imagine the fear and I can imagine the fear and concern people had. Number one of the things that I think we have to understand is that this is an all hands on deck. This is, as someone said, maybe it was you, Jake, at the outset, this is bigger than any individual. This is bigger than yourself. This is about America. This is about the world.
You just said it 5 minutes ago, and you still forgot.
People together and make the kind of sacrifices we need to make to get this done. And so first and foremost, what we have to do is start to listen to the science again. As I said, what we did, we met, and what I'd be doing today, I'd be sitting down in the Situation Room literally every day like we did at the outset of other crises we had when we were in the White House, and pulling together the best people, and not just the United States, the world, and say, what are the prescriptive moves we have to take now to lessen this virus, to beat it, to go to the point where we can save more lives, get more people tested, get more people the kind of care they need. And then what do we do beyond that to make sure that the economic impact on them is in fact rendered harmless, that we in fact make sure every paycheck is met, every paycheck that's out there that the people are going to miss, that we keep people in their homes, they don't miss their mortgage payments, they don't miss their rent payments, making sure that they're going to be able to take care of education, and by the way, the education institutions are closing down right now. And so there's so many things we have to do. And in addition to that, what we have to do is we have to have the best science in the world telling us what can stay open and what need be closed. Like I said earlier, the idea that we're closing schools, which I understand, but not being able to provide lunches for people who, in fact, need the school lunch program to get by. The idea that we would close any place that I can understand the decision made to close places where 100 or 50 people or more gather. But how do you keep open the drugstore to make sure you can get your prescription? How do you deal with the things that necessarily have to be kept going? And what's the way to do that? There should be a national standard for that. It should be coming out of the situation room right now. And by the way, the single most significant thing we can do to deal with the larger problem down the road of income inequality is get rid of Donald Trump. Donald Trump. He's exacerbated every single one of these problems, both the immediate urgent need and how we're going to hold people harmless for the damage done as a consequence of this virus. It's important we do both.
Hold them
Vice President
harmless.
Biden,
What do you mean by
Senator
that?
I have no
Sanders,
idea what he
wanna
means
thank
by
you both
hold
for being
them
here tonight
harmless.
under these challenging and trying circumstances.
Hold them
We wish
harmless,
both of you the
y'all.
best. Our thanks as well to our partners at Univision, for Eliel Calderon and Dana Bash. I'm Jake Tapper. Thank you so much for watching. Please stay
Touch
healthy,
me.
stay safe.
The look on
Our
your face
coverage
when you
of
said
both
it.
tonight's debate and the coronavirus pandemic continues now with Anderson Cooper.
Jake, thanks very much. There you have it, the CNN Univision Democratic debate. Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and a third unwelcome player, the coronavirus. The candidates acknowledge...
Oh, third unwelcome player. I thought he was going to say Tulsi, who qualified, and then they quickly changed the term so that she could disappear.
Stepped up to podiums that were a few extra steps apart, 6 feet apart to be exact. Chris?
Right, and then we saw some moments.
Chris?
Oh, is
Right, and then we
that why
saw
they
some
were
moments where
separated?
These two gentlemen seem to be a
I
world
thought that was weird.
about the pandemic.
Up to podiums, the candidates
Look,
acknowledged...
look at Bernie. Look how Bernie
Jake,
steps
thanks
down
very
from the
much.
podium.
There you have it, the CNN Univision
So
Democratic
there's
debate. Joe
there's
Bernie
Biden
Sanders,
talking. Hey, thank you
and a
guys.
third
Thank you for the
unwelcome player,
preparation. Thank you.
coronavirus. The
Thank you for everything.
candidates acknowledged
Bernie
that
just walks off.
in
Look,
their
look,
final
look.
Well,
remarks.
he gives a
Also,
little
at the very
wave.
beginning, greeting each other with
Little wave.
an elbow bump.
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
just a
guys.
handshake, a hug, but stepped up to
Yeah. Fuck
podiums
you very much.
that were
And
a
off
few
is.
extra
Here's
steps
Biden.
apart,
Thank you
6
guys
feet.
so
Yeah,
much.
but you're supposed to be limiting
Right, and then we saw some
contact,
moments where
so...
these two gentlemen seem to be a
Yeah.
world apart.
Look at him.
About the
Look at him.
pandemic
Yeah.
and how it
Yeah,
was
when we
Right
did
with
that,
that lady.
we did that preparation last night. Went really well. You know, yada
Yeah,
yada
but
yada
you
yada.
notice who he's talking to?
Coronavirus right now. We got
Oh, yeah.
breaking news
The
from the
blonde
CDC
lady.
limiting the size of
It's
gatherings.
always those in these...
Yeah.
He's like, how can
He's
I
gonna,
go over this
he's gonna go
desk?
smell
You,
her hair. He's gonna go smell her hair. It's probably the coronavirus is the only reason he's not sniffing her hair right now.
Oh, it's
This is
so
going a bad
awkward.
time. Isaiah's kind of like
Oh, he's ready to go?
All right. Well,
rush.
What are you gonna do?
I'll do a closing statement. Then we'll be out of here.
All right.
All right, guys. I said it in Super Tuesday. You know, Ranter Matt. If you haven't subscribed to Ranter Matt's channel, I'm gonna put his link in the forum. He's got a very, very unique voice. If sometimes you're run down by my, you know, rawness, whatever that is, Ranter Matt has just he's still a very, very passionate dude. It just comes off differently than the standard Vincent, you know, rah stuff. So I'm posting that in the link. All right. So what do we have? Well, I said it was over on Super Tuesday.
You were right.
The minute that he won Texas, I said it was over. Now, was it literally over? No. But this was a Hail Mary. This was, we saw Biden's depleted mental capacities, and we heard about them trying to get him to sit down during the debate so that they can angle the thing the best that they possibly could. The fact of the matter is, everybody was hoping, at least on Team Bernie, everybody was hoping for a complete and total Biden meltdown, completely losing his train of thought, something. And we were also hoping for Sanders to create the contrast. Even when they were talking about Medicare for all. Look, man, there are ways. You know, a lot of people look at it as like debate traps. It's not debate traps. Here's what happens in a debate. In a debate, there are certain points that your opponent wants to fluff up and flurry or just plain avoid. And your job People say you're painting me into a corner. Yes, your job is to expose the horrible things that your opponent, in your opinion, horrible things that your opponent is actually purporting. So when you're in that discussion, Bernie, and you say true or false, is yes or no, is your plan going to continue to leave millions of Americans uninsured? And is your plan going to cover those 40 to 60,000 people a year, protect them from dying needlessly? And to my knowledge, Biden's plan is not going to do that. And you force him to admit that on camera. Bernie didn't do it. Now, Bernie did kind of pin him against the wall when he lied about his Social Security. He did do that, and that was great. But the
Right.
punchline for that is to say, you are lying, Joe. I love you very much. Maybe you forgot, because I've seen that you forgot a couple things that normal people don't forget.
Right.
And it was about 12 years ago, so maybe you forgot. Either you forgot or you're lying, which is it?
Yeah.
That is where Bernie needed to go.
Yep.
Now, I'm not going to say that Bernie's spineless. I'm just going to say that he does not have it in him to be that type of person, because he's not an actual revolutionary. Bernie, what I have learned from Bernie in the last 4 to 6 years is he's a beautiful soul. God has given him much grace to love his fellow man, except for babies. Aside from that, God has given him a lot of grace to love other human beings. He's a brilliant ideologue, very articulate, but he's not a revolutionary. Now, people make fun of AOC and whatever you want to say. You can make fun of her. She is not as polished as Bernie is. She doesn't have the cachet of decades of a consistent message that Bernie has, but she is a revolutionary. She was the one, in my opinion, that single-handedly forced Pelosi to go the way of impeachment. And we all saw how that turned out. She's the bull in the china shop that needs to spearhead the movement. To be quite honest with you, between what happened in Super Tuesday, what happened in last Super-ish Tuesday, even what happened with Cenk, I'm starting to feel like the progressive movement is pretty much going to die. And the reason is because you had a guy like Bernie that was a singular talent. You look at a guy like Obama. Obama came out of nowhere. He was a singular talent. The difference between Bernie and Obama was that Bernie had 4 decades of consistent messaging. It's not like you can replace that with somebody else. Like, Obama is kind of like a Michael Jordan, LeBron James type character. Like, in 10 or 15 years, we'll probably run into another Obama on the left side or the right side. I mean, Trump is another one I'd put in that category. So that's somebody who's just like, wow, like you just lucked out and wow. Bernie's a different beast. Bernie's a guy. Where else are you going to find another guy who's been preaching the same message for 40 years? And
really unique.
If AOC starts now, then we've got literally 30, 40 years to think about this stuff. Right? And he was the head of the progressive movement. And I think a couple mistakes were made. One, he after he lost to Hillary, he started endorsing her instead of trying to actually burn down the DNC. He should have burned the whole thing to the ground last time. He should have joined, I talked about this in the other video, joined forces with the other progressive, created the FDR People's Party, whatever you want to call it. Don't put peoples in it, because then they'll say you're a communist. But start the FDR Workers' Party or America Party or whatever. FDR America First Party. And you would have had Tulsi as his Secretary of State, Liz Warren as his VP, and Andrew Yang as his whatever. And I believe he would have been able to do that if he would have burned the DNC to the ground. But he didn't. He didn't do that. And Bernie obviously does not look. Say what you want about Trump. It's the same thing I say about AOC. Say what you want about both of them. People say that Trump is dumb, AOC is dumb. Okay, well, you go ahead and be a billionaire, or you go ahead and win a congressional race using just YouTube and Facebook. These are brilliant people in their own way. And Trump knows when to be venomous and when to be conciliatory. He does. Say what you want about how acerbic he is. But when he was dealing with Kim Jong, homeboy from Korea, when he crossed that border from South to North Korea by himself physically, like, he knows how to be conciliatory. Trump knows when to turn it on and when to turn it off. And that is the mark of real disruptors and change agents in cultures and societies. And Bernie does not. He doesn't know when to turn it on. Trump's issue is he doesn't know how quickly to turn it off. And you saw that with the State of the Union address. In the last State of the Union address, he was presidential. He had dignity. He had all the rest of it. So when Pelosi did that little stunt, it completely backfired on her because he was so presidential and so dignified, and he was pulling on everybody's heartstrings in a moment. And so my point is, Trump knows. Call him stupid all you'd like, but he knows how to manipulate a crowd. He knows how to manipulate people. Bernie, on the other hand, I'm sorry, man. He doesn't have it in him. He has, in the Bible, there's the Antichrist and the false prophet, so the Antichrist is the one that's going out and doing all the dirt, but the false prophet is kind of like his spokesman, like you kind of have that kind of team. And Bernie is more like the false prophet he's not the revolutionary change agent leader. He's not that guy. He is the mouthpiece. He is the ideological hub, but he kind of can give you canonical progressivism, but he can't lead the movement. It's clear. He even now, even today, he was saying, "Well, I'm not sure that ours are not as different."
And then he said, "I know you have the best of intentions, or your heart's in the right place, or something like that."
You're well intentioned. Your heart's in the right place. His heart was not in the right place, Bernie. If somebody lies to your face 3 times, their heart is not in the right place, Bernie. If he lies about Iraq and said, "I just didn't know what was happening," even though 2 years later, after we killed all those people, I rebuked my fellow Democrats, including you, for not voting for it. You cannot say his heart is in the right place. But he doesn't have it in him. He doesn't have it in him. And I look, at the end of the day, you can't be mad at Bernie for that. You can't be mad at him for that. That's who he is. It's how God made him. He's just... Part of me is like, Bernie, even Jesus threw over some tables. People sometimes get mad at me for using certain types of language when it comes to abortion. Like, I don't care. I could care less.
Yeah.
There are times when you're supposed to turn it on and show a real distinction, and there are times when you're supposed to be conciliatory. And Bernie is he's just
right.
Anytime show me a single person. People think that Martin Luther King was walking around saying nice stuff to white people all the time. He wasn't. He just wasn't saying what Malcolm was saying, calling them white devils and talking about, hanging out at his door with a shotgun saying any means necessary. Martin wasn't that guy, but believe you me, he said a lot of shit that offended well-meaning white people. Read the letter to from a Birmingham jail, where he called out the white moderate, people that were supposedly on his side. Every change agent, every societal and cultural change agent has a streak about him to where people will say to you, I like what you say, I just don't like the way that you said it. Mm-hmm. Every single cultural change agent speaks that way. And nobody would ever say that about Bernie Sanders. Nobody would go to Bernie and say, I like what you said today, I just wish you'd be easier on the tone. Right. Nobody's ever going to say that to Bernie. And that's why we're in the situation we're in. I spent a lot of time being angry at Bernie, but after tonight, it's just one of those things where it's like, that's how he is. Mm-hmm. That's how God made him. He's a beautiful soul. He's full of grace, very beautiful brother. But he's not the guy. And I honestly believe that this is the end of Bernie Sanders, obviously. This is the end. And I honestly believe that you've got Liz Warren out there, and she has of all the people that I'm still upset at. I'm not upset at what's his face? I forgot. Is it Biden? I'm not upset at Biden. He's been trying to get presidency for 30 years. I'm not mad at him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even mad at Obama and the rest of those guys. Look, man, when a snake shows, they are who they are. People tell you who they are, and they lay their cards out on the table. People are who they are. I'm not mad at Mayor Pete, any of those guys. I got to tell you, though, Liz Warren, whew, I've never seen a more cynical, career-oriented. This whole thing is about me. And a more drastic fall from grace. I've never seen it before in my life. Of course, I'm very young, and all I've seen is Clinton and all the rest of it. But I've never seen a more ideological fall from grace and loss of dignity on a public stage than I've seen in Liz Warren. I'm looking at the comments. Kel saying I was wrong about her. We all were. But the thing is that she was the one that took on Biden during this whole, it wasn't Bernie, it was Liz Warren who took on Biden during this whole thing in 2008, 2009, and made sure that we had some backstops to take care of regular people. Unbelievable stuff. So I'm still mad at her. I'll probably never forgive her for that. Politically, I'll never forgive her. And I think she's lost all credibility with any form of progressivism in America. And I don't see any other leaders in the progressive movement. You've got Tulsi. Maybe Tulsi and AOC get together. I think if those two ladies got together and really started working together now, I think the progressives need to find their candidate, and if you're looking in 4 years, the progressives needs to find their candidate, build a cabinet around them, and start campaigning now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
If anything can show the progressives, look, you're not going to get a fair shake with the DNC. Between Iowa, with the crazy vote, the voter suppression stuff we heard about in Texas, the flipping of the coin bullshit that happened, these people are slapping you in the face and telling you, you guys aren't getting crazy shit from the DNC. Okay, fine. You need to create your own party, the FDR America Party, okay? And then you get your candidate, you get your cabinet, you start working now. That's my expert analysis. I don't know shit. I barely graduated high school. All right, guys. Love everybody. Thank everybody for hanging out. Did I like Bernie's tweet that says abortion is healthcare? No, obviously I did. Thank everybody for hanging out. I got to take care of my brother and my nephew now. But I'm gonna sign off. Love your name. Oh, by the way, this coronavirus thing. I'm going to say a quick prayer for Kellen Dross's mom, Anita. And if you're a praying person, join me. If you're a good vibe person, do that. And if you're not, that's cool. All I ask is that you be respectful. Okay. Jesus, thank you so much for my friend Kellen Dross. Thank you for how much he challenges me and annoys me, and thank you for placing him in my life. God, you know his heart, you know how much he loves his mom. You only get one of those, God, and you know I love mine. So God, I pray that you would protect her body, soul, and spirit, God, from this virus, God. And I thank you that you've placed so much love in Kel's heart for his mom. And God, I pray for all the elderly in our communities. I thank you so much for what Zonia is doing. And God, I pray that you would find some way to give us the wisdom to help out in this time in the village in any way that we can. God, thank you for this virtual community that is becoming even more important now that all of us have become shut-ins. We believe you. We believe that you're strong, we're mighty, and that you have good plans for all of us no matter what we see. And so I pray that you... I selfishly ask you, especially to keep all my friends in the village safe. Kellen Dross, Ben Webb, Pony, everybody, God.
And their families.
And their families. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America.
I'm supposed to do my part.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've been waiting for it.
Well,
I'm
always doing the videos by myself.
No, start over. Say it.
Okay. All right. Love your neighbor.
Hold each other home. Harmless.
Oh, that's...
I've been waiting to say
What did you say?
After we said that beautiful prayer, you're gonna say that. God, please, please take. No, I'm serious, Lord. Please, please,
That's what Biden said.
please help Joe Biden's mind.
We're like, what is he saying?
Reverse the whatever is happening, and seriously, reverse whatever's happening in Joe Biden's mind, and give him a heart of to love everybody in America, everybody, no matter how much they're developed. Okay, love your neighbor.
Take care of each other.
Middle America.
We are the media.
Till next time, guys.